I learned 3 things the day I collapsed on Boylston Street. November wind cuts through cheap fabric like a blade, pregnancy doesn't wait for you to be ready, and Matteo Romano never forgot a single promise he made me. I was 7 months pregnant, 20 pounds lighter than I should have been, and wearing a coat that belonged to a version of myself I no longer recognized. The sidewalk came up fast, gray concrete, salt stains, the muffled sound of my own name being called from somewhere far away. When I opened my eyes in the ER at Mass General, I expected doctors, nurses, maybe even Damien with that look he wore when I embarrassed him. Instead, I saw Matteo, dark eyes, calloused hands holding mine like I was made of something precious. "You're not alone," he said. "Not today." I should have pushed him away. I should have remembered why we ended. But lying there, feeling my baby kick against my ribs, I realized the most dangerous thing in my life wasn't the man from my past. It was the one waiting for me at home. I learned 3 things the day I collapsed. "You're not alone," he said. "Not today." I should have pushed him away. I should have remembered why we ended. But lying there, feeling my baby kick against my ribs, I realized the most dangerous thing in my life wasn't the man from my past. It was the one waiting for me at home. The hospital room smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. That particular mixture of sterility and exhaustion that makes everything feel both too real and completely surreal. The IV in my arm pulled when I moved. A small tether reminding me I was still here, still breathing, still carrying this life inside me that refused to quit despite my body's best efforts to give up. Matteo sat in the corner chair, still wearing his wool coat, charcoal gray, expensive, the kind that actually kept out the cold. And he watched me the way you watch something fragile that might shatter if you breathe wrong. He looked older, silver threading through the dark hair at his temples, new lines around his eyes that mapped the years since I'd seen him last. But his presence still filled a room the same way it always had. Solid, unmovable, like architecture. Like gravity. "Dehydration," he said quietly, his voice rougher than I remembered. "Anemia. The doctor said the baby's okay, but you're not." I wanted to tell him to leave. I'd spent 2 years building a life that didn't include him, didn't require his protection or his pity or his particular brand of solving problems with his hands and his name. But my voice came out small, childlike, a whisper that barely made it past my chapped lips. "Don't call Damien." Something shifted in his expression, a tightening around the jaw, a flash of the old Matteo, the one who'd learned to read violence in the air before it arrived. His hands, resting on his knees, curled into fists so slowly I almost missed it. "Why not?" I couldn't answer. Not yet. Not with nurses coming in and out every 20 minutes, checking monitors and making notes on clipboards. Their efficient sympathy making everything worse because kindness always does when you're trying not to break. Not with my hands still shaking, trembling like I'd been holding something heavy for so long, my muscles had forgotten how to let go. Not with the truth sitting in my chest like a stone I'd swallowed whole, sharp-edged and impossible to dislodge. The doctor came in around 7, Dr. Patel, young and competent, with tired eyes that suggested she'd been on shift too long. She spoke to me like I was capable of making decisions, which felt both refreshing and terrifying. "Your baby is strong," she said, studying the ultrasound screen with the focused attention of someone used to finding problems. "Heart rate is good, movement is normal. But Ms. Sokolova, you're severely malnourished. When was the last time you had a full meal?" I tried to remember. Days, a week. Damien controlled the grocery orders, and lately there'd been less and less. He said we needed to budget better, that I was being irresponsible with spending, that maybe if I wasn't so emotional all the time I'd understand basic math. "I don't know," I admitted. Dr. Patel exchanged a look with Matteo that I couldn't quite read. Professional concern mixed with something else. Recognition, maybe. The kind of silent communication that happens between people who understand the same language of danger. "We're keeping you overnight," she said. "IV fluids, observation, and a nutritionist consult in the morning. Mr. Romano has agreed to stay, if that's acceptable to you." Mr. Romano. As if we were strangers. As if we hadn't been married for 3 years, hadn't lost a baby together, hadn't loved each other with the kind of intensity that either builds cathedrals or burns cities down. We'd managed the burning part. "That's fine," I said, because what else could I say? Because the alternative was calling Damien, and my body recoiled from that thought like touching fire. Dr. Patel left. The nurses rotated through. Evening deepened outside the window. Boston traffic thinning, the city settling into its night rhythms. Mateo stayed exactly where he was, patient as stone, waiting for me to be ready to speak. He took my phone 3 weeks ago. I finally said. The words felt foreign, like I was translating from a language I barely remembered. Said it was stressing me out. All the notifications, the news, the constant connection. He said pregnant women need peace. Mateo's jaw worked. He didn't interrupt. And the prenatal appointments? He canceled them. Said the doctor was too far, that the traffic was bad for my blood pressure, that we'd find someone closer. But we never did. I looked at my hands, at the IV line disappearing into my skin. He started locking the bedroom door at night, from the outside, said it was for my safety, that I'd been sleepwalking, that he was worried I'd hurt myself or the baby. I don't sleepwalk. I never have. Daria. My name, just my name, and all the things he wasn't saying underneath it. I know how it sounds. I did. I sounded like every woman in every support group I'd ever studied in my social work program, back when I thought I'd finished my degree. Back when I thought I understood what domestic control looked like from a safe academic distance. I know what you're thinking. I'm thinking, Mateo said slowly, that you're coming home with me tonight. This isn't your problem. Like hell it isn't. The intensity in his voice made me look up. His eyes held mine with the kind of certainty I'd forgotten existed, the kind that didn't waver or apologize or make you second-guess reality until you couldn't trust your own memory. He's going to look for me, I said. Let him. 2 words, simple, absolute. The promise underneath them vast enough to drown in. When they released me that evening, against medical advice, but I signed the papers because hospitals have rules and Mateo's world operated on different principles entirely. He drove me to an address I didn't recognize, Beacon Hill, historic brownstones with bow windows and gas lamps, the kind of neighborhood where old money whispered instead of shouted. He'd parked in a private lot behind a 4-story building that looked like it had witnessed centuries. This is temporary, he said, killing the engine. Just until we figure out what's happening. As if my disaster had become his project. As if 2 years of divorce had evaporated the moment he found me bleeding into Boston sidewalk salt. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. Hardwood that gleamed in the lamplight, crown molding, tall windows that overlooked a small courtyard garden sleeping under November frost. Someone had been here recently. The radiators hummed with heat, and when I opened the refrigerator, I found it stocked. Milk, eggs, fresh vegetables. The prenatal vitamins I'd run out of weeks ago sitting conspicuously on the top shelf. Mateo. Just for tonight, he repeated, but we both knew he was lying. Lock the door behind me. Don't answer if anyone knocks. My number's programmed in the landline. You're leaving? Something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or the opposite. Relief that I wanted him to stay. But he shook his head. You need rest, real rest, and I need to make some calls. I stood in the doorway of that stranger's apartment, my thin coat still damp from melted snow, my body exhausted in ways sleep couldn't fix. I had 2 choices. Go back to Damien's sterile condo in the seaport where the thermostat was always set too low and the doors locked from the outside, or stay here with a man I'd sworn I'd never depend on again. I chose the apartment. I chose the stocked refrigerator and the clean sheets and the radical concept that maybe I deserved to be warm. That night, I lay in a bed that smelled faintly of lavender detergent and felt my daughter move beneath my ribs. Small flutters, reassuring kicks, her own Morse code telling me to keep going. Mateo had left a glass of water and my vitamins on the nightstand before he'd gone. No note, no demands, just the quiet insistence that I was worth caring for, even when I'd forgotten how to care for myself. I took the vitamins, drank the water, let myself cry for the first time in months, silent tears that soaked the pillow and released something toxic I'd been holding in my throat. Sleep came eventually, heavy and dreamless. I woke to morning light and the smell of coffee I hadn't made. For a moment, panic, then I remembered. Beacon Hill. Safety. Mateo's careful intervention in a life I'd let spiral so far out of control I'd nearly killed us both. Me and this baby who deserved better than a mother too proud or too scared to ask for help. I found my phone on the kitchen counter. My actual phone. The iPhone with the cracked screen that I'd thought was gone forever. That Damien said he'd recycled because I didn't need the distraction. Fully charged, waiting. 17 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. And one text message time-stamped from 3 hours ago. He knows where you are. Protection, I learned, has a schedule. It has routines. It has a man named Sal with kind eyes and a shoulder holster who knocked on the Beacon Hill apartment door at exactly 8:45 in the morning, holding a paper bag that smelled like cinnamon and butter. "Mr. Romano sent breakfast," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "And he asked me to drive you to your prenatal appointment at 10. I stared at him through the crack in the door, chain still latched, my other hand instinctively protective over my stomach. "I don't have an appointment." "You do now. Mass General, Dr. Osei. She's expecting you." The presumption of it should have made me angry. Instead, I felt something closer to relief. That terrible gratitude that comes when someone makes decisions for you because you've forgotten how to make them yourself. I'd been operating on autopilot for so long, accommodating and adjusting and making myself small enough to fit through the narrowing space Damien allowed me, that having someone simply tell me what came next felt almost like freedom. I ate the pastry, almond croissant, still warm, while getting dressed in yesterday's clothes. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like a stranger. Hollow cheeks, dark circles deep enough to drown in, hair that needed washing. 7 months pregnant, and I looked skeletal everywhere the baby wasn't. How had I let it get this bad? How had I not noticed I was disappearing? But I had noticed. That was the worst part. I'd watched myself fade and told myself it was normal, that pregnancy was hard, that Damien was right when he said I was being dramatic about needing more food, more space, more air. Sal waited in the building's small lobby, scrolling through his phone with the practiced patience of someone used to waiting. When I appeared, he pocketed the device and held the door, old-fashioned courtesy that felt both comforting and anachronistic. The car was warm. Classical music played softly from the speakers. Sal drove like someone who'd spent time in the military. Economical movements, constant awareness of surroundings, checking mirrors more than necessary. We pulled out of the private lot, and I noticed another car. Dark sedan, tinted windows, pull out 2 spaces behind us. "Is that..." I started. "Marco?" Sal confirmed. "Just a precaution. Just a precaution." As if I needed armed escorts to see a doctor. As if my life had become the kind of situation that required backup and exit strategies. The reality of it hit me in waves. This wasn't normal. This wasn't pregnancy hormones or postpartum anxiety arriving early. This was danger, real and present, the kind that required men with guns to keep me breathing. My phone, the recovered, supposedly recycled phone, sat in my coat pocket like a live grenade. I'd read the text message 17 times before finally turning the screen off. "He knows where you are." Simple words, terrifying implications. Damien had always known things he shouldn't, had always appeared exactly when I thought I was alone. I'd attributed it to coincidence, to the small world of Boston's social circles, to my own paranoia. Now I wondered what else I'd been blind to. Doctor. Osi turned out to be a woman in her 50s with silver locks and reading glasses on a beaded chain. She examined me with efficient gentleness, measuring my belly, checking the baby's heartbeat with a Doppler that filled the room with that underwater gallop. Fast, strong, relentless. "Your daughter's doing beautifully," she said, making notes on a tablet. "You, however, are severely underweight for this stage. Have you been eating regularly?" The question felt loaded. What counted as regularly? Damien's carefully portioned meals, the crackers I snuck from the back of the cabinet when he wasn't looking, the mornings I was too nauseous to eat anything and he'd said it was fine, that I was fat enough already. "It's been difficult," I said carefully. Dr. Osei set down the tablet. Her eyes found mine with the directness of someone who'd seen too much to waste time on euphemisms. "Daria, I need you to understand something. Malnutrition during pregnancy doesn't just affect you. Your baby is taking what she needs from your bones, your blood, your reserves. You're cannibalizing yourself to keep her alive. That's not sustainable. I know. Do you? Not unkind, just honest. Because women in your situation often normalize what's happening. They tell themselves it's temporary, that they can handle it, that asking for help is weakness. But your body is already in crisis mode. Your blood work from yesterday shows severe anemia, vitamin deficiencies across the board, and stress hormones that suggest chronic anxiety. This isn't just difficult. This is dangerous. The words hit like physical blows. I felt my throat tighten, my eyes burn with tears. I'd promised myself I wouldn't cry in front of strangers. But Dr. Osei wasn't a stranger. She was witness. And maybe I needed someone to see me, really see me, and name what was happening without the softening language I'd been using to make it bearable. "I'm trying," I whispered. "I know you are. And that's why I'm going to help you try harder." She pulled out a prescription pad, started writing with swift efficiency. Iron supplements, prenatal vitamins with extra folate, and a referral to a nutritionist who specializes in pregnancy. "I want to see you again in 1 week, not 3. And Daria?" "Yes?" "The man in your waiting room. Sal. He told me you're staying somewhere safe now. Is that true?" I thought about the Beacon Hill apartment with its stocked refrigerator and soft sheets. About Mateo's careful orchestration of care without asking permission. About the choice I'd made to stay instead of going back to a place where doors locked from the outside. "Yes," I said. "It's true." "Good. Because your baby needs you alive. And alive means more than just breathing." When I emerged from the exam room, Sal stood from his chair with the kind of alertness that suggested he'd been listening for trouble. Behind him, near the elevator, I spotted Marco, younger, broader, with the kind of face that could blend into any crowd. Our eyes met briefly. He nodded once, and then I saw Mateo. He leaned against the reception desk, talking quietly with the woman behind the counter. Some easy charm that made her smile, that made the whole interaction look natural despite his expensive suit and the way he commanded space without trying. When he saw me, something in his expression shifted, softened. "How'd it go?" he asked, pushing off the desk. "You didn't have to come." "I know." He fell into step beside me, Sal and Marco creating a loose perimeter as we moved toward the elevator. "But I wanted to hear it from the doctor myself." "That's overstepping." "Probably. No apology. Just acknowledgement." The elevator arrived, doors sliding open with a soft chime. "But I'm going to keep overstepping until you're safe. Get used to it." The statement should have made me angry. Instead, I felt that dangerous warmth again, the seductive pull of letting someone else carry the weight I'd been shouldering alone. We rode down in silence, the 4 of us occupying corners like chess pieces, each person aware of the others without needing to look. Outside, the November air bit through my thin coat immediately. Before I could shiver, Mateo was shrugging out of his wool overcoat and draping it over my shoulders. It swallowed me, heavy with his warmth and the faint scent of cedar and smoke. "I have a coat," I protested weakly. "You have fabric held together by hope." He opened the car door, waiting. "This is a coat." I slid into the back seat. He followed, close enough that our knees almost touched. Sal started the engine. Marco pulled out ahead of us in the sedan. We merged into Boston traffic, and I watched the city slide past the tinted windows. Familiar streets made strange by fear, ordinary corners hiding potential threats. "We need to talk about Damien," Mateo said quietly. There it was, the conversation I'd been avoiding since I woke up to that text message. I pulled his coat tighter around myself, borrowing courage from borrowed warmth. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. But start with how you met him." So I told him about the grief counseling group at the hospital, the one they'd recommended after I'd lost our baby. About Damien appearing in the 3rd session, well-dressed and articulate, sharing a story about losing his sister to cancer that had made everyone cry. About how he'd approached me afterward, gentle and respectful, asking if I wanted coffee sometime. He knew exactly what to say, I said, watching my reflection in the window. Exactly when to listen and when to talk. When to touch my hand and when to give me space. It felt organic, natural. Like the universe was apologizing for everything I'd lost by giving me something better. Mateo's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. He told me you'd moved on. Showed me photos of you with other women at restaurants, clubs, always laughing, always looking happy. Said I deserved someone who'd choose me first, who wouldn't disappear into his work when things got hard. "Those photos were business meetings," Mateo said, voice rough. "Dinners with politicians, wives, charity events. The kind of shit I had to do to keep legitimate income flowing. I wasn't with any of them. I know that now. The admission cost me. But then, I was so angry at you for not being there when I miscarried, for leaving instead of fighting for us, that I believed what I wanted to believe. The car turned onto a street I didn't recognize, brownstones giving way to newer construction. Sal navigated with the confidence of someone who knew every shortcut, every alley, every route that avoided cameras. We got married 14 months after our divorce was finalized. I continued. City Hall, simple ceremony. His family didn't come, said they were in Europe, couldn't make it back in time. I should have questioned that, should have wondered why someone so devoted had family who couldn't board a plane. And the pregnancy happened fast, too fast. I put my hand on my stomach, feeling her shift and settle. He stopped my birth control without telling me. I found the pills crushed in the bathroom trash 3 months after we'd married. When I confronted him, he said he'd done it for us, that I'd told him I wanted a family, that he was just helping me get what I really wanted. Mateo made a sound low in his throat, something between a curse and a growl. That's when things changed. I said. Little things at first. He wanted to know where I was all the time. Started timing my errands, checking receipts, questioning why I needed to leave the apartment at all when everything could be delivered. Said pregnant women should rest. That the city was dangerous. That I was being irresponsible, taking unnecessary risks. The car pulled into an underground garage, and suddenly we were somewhere else entirely. Somewhere industrial, with concrete pillars and fluorescent lighting that turned everything corpse gray. Sal parked near an elevator marked private. Marco's sedan pulled in beside us. Where are we? I asked. Somewhere we can talk without worrying who's listening. Mateo opened his door, extended his hand. Trust me. Those 2 words. Simple, impossible. Everything I'd been trying not to do. I took his hand. The elevator required a key card. It rose smoothly, stopping at a floor that didn't exist according to the buttons, between 3 and 4, that architectural space where secrets lived. The doors opened onto an office that looked like it belonged in a completely different building. Hardwood, leather furniture, walls lined with books that had actually been read. A woman sat at a desk near the window, backlit by afternoon sun that made her edges glow. Dark hair in a practical bun, glasses perched on her nose, fingers flying across a laptop keyboard with the speed of someone fluent in digital languages. This is Nina, Mateo said. She's going to help us understand who Damien really is. Nina looked up, assessed me with quick intelligence, then gestured to a chair. Sit, this is going to take a while. I sat. Nina turned her laptop around, and I found myself looking at a driver's license photo I didn't recognize. Same face, Damien's face, but the name read Dmitry Kadyrov. Birth date different. Birthplace listed as Brighton Beach, Brooklyn. Your husband, Nina said, not unkindly. Doesn't exist. Damien Cade is a construct. A very expensive, very carefully maintained construct built on top of a juvenile record that was sealed when Dmitry turned 18. My hands went cold. What did he do? Trafficking. He was 17. Recruited girls from his high school to work for his uncle's escort service. When the operation got busted, Dmitry took a plea deal, testified against his uncle in exchange for witness protection and a clean slate. Nina pulled up another document, this one an official-looking report with redactions. He was supposed to disappear, start over somewhere quiet. Instead, he went to college on a government stipend, learned how to move money digitally, and rebuilt his uncle's entire operation using shell companies and cryptocurrencies. I couldn't breathe. The room tilted. The grief counseling group, Mateo said behind me, his hand suddenly on my shoulder, grounding. That wasn't chance. No. Nina pulled up more documents, these showing financial records, property transfers, names I half recognized from news reports about corruption scandals. He targets women specifically, women with resources, connections, or vulnerabilities that can be exploited. You checked multiple boxes, Daria. Divorced from a known organized crime figure, isolated from family, grieving, and therefore suggestible. You were perfect. Perfect for what? My voice sounded distant, like someone else was speaking through my mouth. Nina's expression gentled slightly. Insurance. If anyone started investigating his operations, you'd be the tragic widow with a compelling story. Maybe you'd even testify about how your ex-husband had threatened Damien, how you feared for your life, how everything terrible that happened was actually Matteo Romano's fault. The implications crashed over me like cold water. I saw it all suddenly. The isolation, the control, the pregnancy he'd engineered without my consent, the life insurance policy I'd signed without reading carefully, trusting him when he said it was standard protection for our growing family. I was supposed to die. That was the plan. Get pregnant, get isolated, get eliminated. And my baby, your daughter, Nina said, reading my mind, would have been adopted. There are already preliminary papers filed with a private agency. Damien listed himself as a widower, seeking to place his late wife's baby with a family better equipped to provide stability. I stood so fast the chair tipped backward, made it 3 steps before my knees gave out. Matteo caught me, always catching me, and I hated him for it and needed him for it in equal measure. I have to call my mother, I gasped. My sister. If he knows where I am, if he's watching, they're still in Moscow. They don't understand. Already handled, Matteo said quietly. I had someone check on them this morning. They're safe. They think you sent flowers for your mother's birthday. How did you? I didn't tell you. I remember when her birthday is, Daria. Of course he did. Matteo remembered everything. Dates, preferences, the small details that built intimacy. That's what I'd lost when I'd left him, someone who paid attention. What I'd gained with Damien was someone who'd weaponized attention, turning care into surveillance. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Unknown number. But the message was clear. 3 dozen white roses and a card in handwriting I'd recognize anywhere, photographed and sent to make sure I understood. The roses sat in a crystal vase on a familiar table. My mother's apartment, her table, her home violated by flowers that meant one thing. You were chosen as a message. Daria, did you think leaving would make you invisible? Matteo moved me that night. No discussion, no debate, no pretense of asking permission. One phone call, brief, coded, the kind of conversation that communicated volumes in silence. And suddenly I was in the back of an SUV with tinted windows so dark the city disappeared. We drove through streets I didn't recognize, Marco ahead, Sal behind, a convoy of protection that felt both reassuring and suffocating. Where are we going? I asked. My hand pressed against the window like I could anchor myself to something familiar. Somewhere he can't send flowers. The finality in Matteo's voice left no room for argument. I watched Boston slide past in fragments. The gold dome of the State House catching streetlight, the narrow colonial streets of the North End giving way to broader avenues, then the industrial sprawl near the Charlestown Navy Yard where old brick warehouses stood like sentinels guarding the harbor. We pulled into a loading dock behind a building that looked abandoned, cracked concrete, graffiti tags faded by weather, windows dark and empty. But when Sal killed the engine, I heard it. The low thrum of generators, the subtle buzz of electricity, life hidden behind deliberate decay. This is one of your places, I said. Not a question. This is where we work. Matteo opened his door, extended his hand. The November wind off the water cut through his coat, carrying salt and diesel and the particular smell of a city built on reclaimed land. And right now, work means keeping you alive. Inside, the warehouse had been gutted and rebuilt into something else entirely. The ground floor still looked industrial. Crates, forklifts, the kind of equipment that made legitimate paperwork make sense. But the mezzanine above held offices with actual walls, actual doors, computers glowing in the darkness like distant stars. People moved through the space with purpose. I recognized the type, efficient, observant, the kind of careful that came from living in worlds where mistakes had permanent consequences. A few glanced at me, pregnant woman, expensive borrowed coat, clearly out of place, but no one stared. No one asked questions. They simply adjusted, incorporated my presence into their calculations, and kept moving. Matteo led me up metal stairs that rang under our feet, down a hallway that smelled like coffee and ink, into a conference room where Nina already sat with her laptop and a table covered in photographs. "Sit," she said, not looking up. "You're going to want to sit for this." I sat. Matteo remained standing, positioned between me and the door, in a way that might have been unconscious but probably wasn't. Sal posted up outside. Marco disappeared somewhere into the building's depths. Nina turned her laptop toward me, and I found myself looking at surveillance footage. Time-stamped, high definition, the kind of clarity that caught every detail. I watched Dimitri. I had to start thinking of him as Dimitri, meet with men in expensive suits, shake hands, exchange briefcases. The locations varied. Restaurants, parking garages, hotel lobbies, always public enough to seem innocent, always private enough for deniability. "This is Councilman Torres," Nina said, freezing on a frame. "He's been under federal investigation for contract fraud. And this?" Another click, another frozen moment. "Senator Brennan's chief of staff. Currently the subject of 3 separate ethics inquiries. What does this have to do with me?" "Everything." Nina's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up more footage. "Dimitri sells access. That's his primary revenue stream. But access requires collateral, something to ensure his clients stay loyal, stay quiet, photographs of them in compromising positions, financial records that shouldn't exist. And sometimes," she pulled up a new file, this one showing young women in club settings, laughing too hard, eyes too bright, bodies too loose. "Sometimes he provides the compromising positions himself." My stomach turned. I recognized one of the girls, barely 20, blonde, the kind of beauty that attracted predators. She'd been at a charity event Damien had taken me to early in our relationship, before I'd started showing. He'd introduced her as an intern, eager and grateful for the opportunity to network. "Her name was Jessica Murray," Nina said quietly. "Was, because she overdosed 6 months ago in a Back Bay apartment owned by one of Dimitri's shell companies. The medical examiner ruled it accidental, but the tox screen showed levels of fentanyl mixed with rohypnol that suggested someone else had done the mixing." Jesus. The word came out strangled. She's not the only one. More photos, more faces, a gallery of young women who'd made the mistake of trusting the wrong charming man. 4 deaths in 3 years, all ruled accidental or suicide, all connected to properties or events linked to Dimitri's network. The FBI has been trying to build a case, but he's careful, uses cutouts, maintains distance, ensures nothing traces directly back to him. "Except me," I said, understanding crystallizing like ice in my chest. "I'm the trace. I'm the connection everyone can see." Nina nodded. "You're his legitimacy, the pregnant wife, the respectable social worker, the woman who'd swear in court that he's gentle and kind and incapable of violence. You're his armor." I thought about the prenatal appointments he'd canceled, the phone he'd confiscated, the door that locked from the outside. Every control mechanism designed to keep me exactly where he needed me, visible enough to establish his cover, isolated enough that I couldn't discover what that cover was hiding. "Show her the rest," Mateo said from behind me, his voice flat in a way that meant he was controlling something larger. Nina hesitated, just for a second, but I caught it, that flicker of reluctance that meant whatever came next was worse than what I'd already seen. "There's a warehouse in Everett," she said, "near the docks. Officially, it's owned by a logistics company that handles imports from Eastern Europe. Unofficially," she pulled up shipping manifests, customs forms, documents dense with codes I didn't understand. "It's a processing center. Girls come in from Poland, Ukraine, Belarus, young, desperate, promised jobs as nannies or housekeepers. Their passports get confiscated at customs, for safekeeping, they're told. Then they disappear into a network of clubs and private parties, servicing men who pay premium prices for discretion." The room felt too small suddenly, walls pressing in. I couldn't get enough air. "How long?" I managed. "How long has this been happening?" "Best guess? 5 years, maybe longer." Nina pulled up financial records that showed money moving through accounts like water through pipes, never stopping long enough to leave traces. "But it accelerated 18 months ago, right around the time he married you, right around the time he'd made himself seem respectable. The grief-stricken widower, because in his narrative, that's what I was supposed to become. Rebuilding his life with charitable work and political connections. I'd been the proof of his transformation, the evidence that he'd moved beyond whatever sealed juvenile record the world wasn't allowed to see. My daughter kicked, strong and insistent, and I put my hand over the movement. This baby that Dimitri had engineered, had created through deceit and violation. This life growing inside me despite everything. She deserved better than becoming another casualty in someone else's power games. I need to see it, I said. What? Mateo moved, suddenly in my line of sight. The warehouse. I need to see where. I couldn't finish. Didn't need to. If I'm going to testify, if I'm going to help you build a case, I need to understand what I'm testifying against. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide that. The hell I don't. He planted both hands on the table, leaning in. You're 7 months pregnant, Daria. You're malnourished. You've been through enough trauma in the last 48 hours to justify a complete breakdown. I'm not taking you into an active crime scene so you can have nightmares for the rest of your life. I'll have nightmares anyway. I stood, meeting his intensity with my own. At least this way. They'll be based on truth instead of imagination. At least this way. I'll know exactly what I escaped. Something passed between us. Recognition, maybe, or memory. Mateo had always responded to strength, had always respected the parts of me that refused to bend. That's what had made our marriage work until grief broke us both. And that's what had made our divorce necessary. Two people too strong in their own ways to compromise, too proud to ask for help when the foundation cracked. One condition, he finally said. You follow every instruction, no improvisation, no curiosity. You see what I show you and nothing else. Agreed. Nina closed her laptop with a finality that sounded like a judge's gavel. You're both insane. For the record, noted, Mateo said. Then, to me, we go tonight. When the night shift is skeleton crew, Marco runs surveillance first, confirms the patterns. If anything feels wrong, we abort. I nodded, not trusting my voice. What I was agreeing to felt enormous and necessary and completely terrifying. But I was done being the thing people protected. The object moved from safe house to safe house while men made decisions about my life. If I was going to survive this, truly survive, not just breathing but living, I needed to understand the full scope of what I was fighting against. We spent the afternoon preparing. Sal brought food, real food, the kind with protein and vegetables and calories I'd been missing for months. I ate mechanically, fueling the machine of my body because my daughter needed the fuel. Nina briefed me on what to expect. Layout of the building, typical guard rotations, the parts we'd see versus the parts that were too dangerous to access. Mateo made phone calls in Russian and Italian, that code switching he'd always done when business got complicated, his voice shifting registers to match whomever he was manipulating. At 11, Marco returned with a tablet showing thermal imaging of the Everett warehouse. He walked us through it clinically. 3 guards on the ground floor, 2 on upper levels, 1 in what appeared to be an office. Trucks scheduled to arrive at 2 a.m., which meant the window between midnight and 1 was optimal. The accountant, Marco said, zooming in on a heat signature near the back of the building. He's still there. Working late or living there, hard to say. The accountant? I asked. Every operation has someone who knows where the money goes, Nina explained. Someone who can connect the shell companies to the real owners. Find the accountant. You find the evidence. At midnight, we moved. Different vehicles this time. An unmarked van that looked like it belonged to a plumbing company, complete with fake decals and equipment. I wore dark clothes Nina had provided, the loosest maternity outfit I'd ever seen, paired with a coat that actually fit. Mateo gave me a small earpiece. You hear anything unusual? You tell me immediately, he said, fitting it carefully. His fingers brushed my ear, and I felt the ghost of intimacy we'd spent 2 years trying to forget. Marco will be on the perimeter. Sal stays with the van. If this goes wrong, it won't. If it does, he continued, holding my gaze. You run. You don't wait for me. You don't try to help. You run, and you let Sal get you somewhere safe. Mateo, promise me. I thought about the baby moving inside me, about the life I was responsible for protecting, about the fact that I'd already made too many mistakes driven by pride or stubbornness or the toxic need to prove I didn't need help. I promise, I said. The drive to Everett took 20 minutes. The warehouse district was exactly what movies made you expect. Chain-link fences, sodium lights casting orange shadows, the industrial sprawl that cities hide from tourists. We parked 3 blocks away. Marco had already bypassed the perimeter security, confirmed the cameras were on loops, established our entry point. Stay close, Mateo murmured, helping me out of the van. Watch where you step. There's broken glass everywhere. We moved through darkness punctuated by distant streetlights. I kept one hand on my stomach, as if I could shield my daughter from what we were walking toward. The warehouse loomed ahead, a concrete monolith against the night sky, windows dark except for one glowing rectangle on the second floor. Mateo's earpiece crackled. Marco's voice. Low. Guard change in 6 minutes. Move now. We moved. The side entrance Marco had left ajar opened silently. Inside, the warehouse smelled wrong, chemical cleaners trying to mask something organic and rotten. My eyes adjusted slowly. Shipping containers stacked like building blocks, pallets wrapped in plastic. Everything organized with the kind of precision that spoke to regular operations. And then I saw them. Photographs, dozens of them, tacked to a corkboard in what looked like a makeshift office. Young women, each with a number written in marker across the bottom. Not names, numbers, like inventory, like livestock. My hand went to my mouth, stifling the sound trying to escape. Mateo's hand found my shoulder, squeezed once, grounding. Then he moved past me toward a desk covered in ledgers, actual paper ledgers, the kind people used when they didn't want digital traces. He photographed each page with methodical efficiency, the camera's shutter barely audible. I forced myself to look at the photographs, to see each face, to witness what I'd been part of without knowing, what my presence in Dimitri's life had helped make possible. Some of the girls looked younger than my sister. Some had bruises carefully concealed with makeup. All of them had the same expression, hope dying in real time. Daria, Mateo's voice, urgent. We need to go, now. But I'd found something else. A file cabinet, unlabeled, tucked behind the desk. Inside, manila folders organized alphabetically. I pulled one at random. Jessica Murray, the girl who'd overdosed. Except here was documentation suggesting it hadn't been an overdose at all. A contract detailing what she'd agreed to do for money she'd never received. Medical records showing injuries consistent with assault. And a single photograph of her in an evening gown, smiling beside Councilman Torres at a charity gala. Daria. More urgent now. Marco says the guard rotation changed early. We have 90 seconds. I grabbed my folder, the one with my name on it, shoved it inside my coat, let Mateo pull me toward the exit, his hand iron firm on my wrist. We made it to the door. The explosion happened before we'd crossed the threshold, not behind us, but ahead. The van where Sal waited erupting in a fireball that turned night into day. The shockwave hit like a fist, throwing me forward into Mateo's arms, heat and light, and a pressure that stole my breath. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard him shouting into his comms, felt him half carrying, half dragging me toward an alternative exit. Marco appeared from nowhere, covering our retreat with the casual efficiency of someone used to violence. And then, clear as a bell, cutting through chaos, Dimitri's voice from speakers I hadn't noticed, from a PA system that meant he'd been watching the entire time. Did you really think I didn't know you'd come? Reasonable. Almost amused. Did you think I didn't want you to find those files? Now everyone will know. Romano destroys evidence. Romano kills witnesses. And Daria? A pause. Theatrical? She dies in the crossfire, another casualty of loving the wrong man. I didn't die in the explosion. Neither did Mateo. But survival, I was learning, wasn't the same thing as escape. It was just the universe giving you more opportunities to make impossible choices. We ran through streets I didn't know, Marco ahead clearing corners like he could see through walls, Mateo's hand never leaving mine even when I stumbled. My lungs burned. My daughter kicked in protest against all this adrenaline flooding my system. Behind us, sirens wailed. Fire trucks, police, the cavalry arriving too late to matter. Sal was dead. The van was rubble, and I was carrying evidence that made me either the most important witness in Boston or the most convenient scapegoat, depending on who got to tell the story first. We ended up in the North End, in an apartment above a bakery that smelled like anise and espresso, even at 2 a.m. Smaller than the Beacon Hill place, warmer. The kind of space that felt lived in rather than staged. Books with cracked spines, a coat thrown over a chair, coffee cup rings on the wooden table. "This is yours," I said, not a question. "This is mine." Mateo locked 3 separate deadbolts, then pulled curtains I hadn't noticed were reinforced with something heavier than fabric. "Sit down before you fall down." I sat. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept seeing that moment. The van exploding. Sal inside. The man who'd brought me cinnamon pastries and driven me to doctor's appointments and never once made me feel like a burden. Just gone. Erased. Because Dimitri wanted to make a point. Marco appeared with a first aid kit, started checking me for injuries I hadn't noticed acquiring. A cut on my arm from flying glass, bruises already forming on my shoulder where Matteo had grabbed me. My blood pressure was probably catastrophic, my stress hormones off every chart. But my daughter kept moving, kept kicking, kept fighting, kept insisting on her right to exist, despite everything trying to stop her. I need to call someone, I said. Sal's family. Someone needs to tell them. Already done. Matteo's voice came from across the room, flat and hard in the way it got when he was processing trauma by not processing it at all. Marco made the call. His wife knows. His kids know. They'll be taken care of. Taken care of. The phrase that covered everything and meant nothing. Money in accounts, explanations that weren't quite lies. A funeral with full honors where people would say he died doing his job. And they'd all understand the job had nothing to do with driving cars. This is my fault, I said. No. He died protecting me. That makes it my fault. Matteo crossed the room in 3 strides, knelt in front of where I sat, his hands framing my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything we'd just survived. Sal died doing what he chose to do. He knew the risks. He knew who he was protecting and why. Don't you dare take that choice away from him by making it about your guilt. The words hit like a slap. True and terrible and exactly what I needed to hear. I pulled a file, I said, reaching inside my coat. My file. From the warehouse. Before. The folder was bent, corners scorched, but intact. I handed it to Matteo. Watched his face as he opened it, as he saw what Dimitri had compiled about me. Medical records from the miscarriage, financial statements from when we'd been married, photographs of me with Matteo taken from angles that suggested long-range surveillance, and documents I'd never seen. A contract with my forged signature selling shares of Matteo's legitimate businesses to dummy corporations. A life insurance policy naming Dimitri as beneficiary. A birth certificate for my daughter already filled out with his name in the father line. He was going to make it legal, I whispered. Even if he killed me, he'd still own her. Still control what happened to her. I'd be gone and she'd be... I couldn't finish. Matteo set the folder down with a control that meant he wanted to put his fist through something. How far along were you when he stopped your birth control? I thought back. 3 months married, maybe less. So the pregnancy was always part of the plan. Not a complication, the actual goal. He stood, paced to the window, back to me. A baby gives him long-term claim to you, gives him leverage if you tried to leave, gives him a sympathetic story if you died. Either way, he wins. Until I collapsed on Boylston Street and you found me. Until you chose to stay instead of going back. He turned to face me. That's what broke his timeline. The moment you accepted help, you stopped being controllable. From the kitchen, Marco's phone buzzed. He answered in Italian too rapid for me to follow, his expression darkening with whatever news he was receiving. When he hung up, he looked at Matteo with something that might have been pity. Detective Chen is en route, he said. Someone called in an anonymous tip. Says Daria was at the warehouse tonight. Says she was seen fleeing the scene before the explosion. Of course. Of course Dimitri would have cameras everywhere. Would have footage showing me inside the warehouse moments before Sal died. Of course he'd spin it so I looked complicit, so I became the criminal instead of the witness. She can't find her here, I said, standing despite my shaking legs. If she finds me in your apartment, it just confirms whatever story Dimitri's telling. You need to sit down, Matteo interrupted. We're past running. Running just makes you look guilty. We need to control the narrative before someone else does. How? He looked at Marco, some silent communication passing between them. Then back to me. 3 rules. We talked about them at Beacon Hill, but we never finished the conversation. So let's finish it now. I stared at him. We'd just survived an explosion. A man was dead. The police were coming. And Matteo wanted to negotiate rules like we had time for philosophy. You said 3 rules for me, he continued. Don't leave without security. Don't contact anyone from your old life. Tell you the truth, but we never discussed what you get in return. I get to live. You said that already. No. He moved closer. You get more than survival. You get choice? You get agency, you get to decide what happens next, and I support that decision even if it's not what I'd choose. That's the deal. The words hung between us like a bridge I didn't know how to cross. Everything in my life, first with Matteo, then with Dimitri, had been about men making decisions for me, protecting me, controlling me, deciding what I could handle and what needed to be hidden. And here was Matteo, offering the thing I'd been fighting for all along: autonomy. I want to talk to Detective Chen. I said, I want to tell her everything. The trafficking, the warehouse, the files. I want to be the one who controls what story gets told. That makes you a target. I'm already a target. At least this way, I'm a target who fights back. Something flickered across his face. Pride, maybe, or grief for the innocence I'd lost somewhere between collapsing on a sidewalk and watching a van explode. Okay. Then we do it smart. We call Chen ourselves. We meet her somewhere public. And we bring a lawyer who specializes in witness protection. You tell the truth, but you tell it with legal coverage. And you? I stay visible. I make noise. I give every news outlet in Boston a statement about how my security team was murdered, protecting my ex-wife from her abusive husband. I make this about Dimitri's violence, not my business. It was strategy. Cold. Calculated. The kind of long-game thinking that had made Matteo successful in worlds where mistakes got people killed. But underneath the strategy, I heard something else. The desire to protect me. Yes, but also the willingness to let me protect myself. One more rule, I said. My rule, not yours. He waited. You don't lie to me. Not to protect me. Not to spare my feelings. Not to maintain plausible deniability. If I'm going to trust you with my life, I need to know what that life costs. What you're doing, who you're calling, what the plan actually is. No more finding out after the fact that you've handled things. The request hung between us. I watched him wrestle with it, the instinct to control information warring against his promise to give me choice. Finally, he extended his hand. Deal. I took it. His palm was rough, scarred, warm. The handshake lasted longer than it needed to. Both of us aware we were agreeing to more than just rules. We were agreeing to rebuild trust that had died with our baby 2 years ago. We were agreeing that maybe, possibly, we could be partners instead of protector and protected. Marco cleared his throat. Chen's 10 minutes out. You want me to call the lawyer? Call Reeves, Matteo said. She's FBI, she's been building the trafficking case, and she'll understand why Daria needs protection, not prosecution. Who's Reeves? I asked. Matteo met my eyes. Someone who's been trying to stop Dimitri for 3 years. Someone who will understand that you're the break in the case she's been waiting for. The honesty felt like a gift. No surprises, no revelations after the fact, just information given freely because I'd asked for it. My daughter kicked, hard enough that I gasped. Matteo's gaze dropped to my stomach, something in his expression cracking open. Without thinking, I took his hand and placed it where she was moving. She's restless tonight, I said. Can you blame her? But his voice had gentled, and when my daughter kicked against his palm, he made a sound that was half laugh, half wonder. She's a fighter. She has to be. His eyes found mine, and suddenly we weren't talking about the baby anymore. We were talking about us, about survival and choice and the impossible gamble of trusting someone who'd already hurt you once. About whether love was enough to rebuild what grief had destroyed. Daria, he said quietly, I need you to know something. What? 2 years ago, when you lost the baby, I left because I didn't know how to be what you needed. I was drowning in my own guilt. I wasn't there when you needed me. I was dealing with business I thought was more important, and instead of staying and figuring out how to swim, I ran. The confession cost him something. I could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the careful way he wasn't quite meeting my eyes. I told myself you deserved better, he continued. Someone who'd choose you first, who wouldn't disappear into work when things got hard. And I was right, you did deserve that. But instead of becoming that person, I just left. I made it your problem instead of mine. Matteo, let me finish. He looked at me then, fully. When I saw you collapse on Boylston Street, when I realized what Dimitri had done to you, all I could think was that I'd failed you twice. Once by leaving and once by not realizing you were in danger. So I made a promise to myself, if you let me back in your life, even just the edges, I'd do it differently. I'd show up, I'd stay, I'd be worthy of the second chance I didn't deserve. The words settled between us like snow, quiet, transformative, covering everything familiar until it looked new. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I'm just asking for the chance to keep showing up. Before I could answer, a knock rattled the door. 3 sharp raps. Official. Marco checked the peephole. Chen. And she brought back up. Mateo squeezed my hand once, then released it, stepped back, gave me space to be the one who decided what happened next. I stood, smoothed my coat, felt my daughter move beneath my ribs like a reminder. I wasn't just surviving for myself anymore. I was surviving for her. And survival meant fighting, not hiding. Let her in, I said. Marco opened the door. Detective Chen stood in the hallway with 2 uniformed officers, her expression carefully neutral. She took in the scene, me, disheveled and obviously pregnant, Mateo, too calm for someone whose security team had just been murdered, Marco, positioned exactly where he could reach his weapon if needed. Miss Sokolova, she said, we need to talk about where you were tonight. I know, I said, and I'm ready to tell you everything. But first, I need you to understand something. What's that? I'm not a victim anymore. The words came out steady. Certain. I'm a witness. And I'm going to help you destroy the man who tried to make me disappear. Chen studied me for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, made a call. Agent Reeves, I'm going to need your assistance. I've got a cooperative witness, and I think she's about to break your case wide open. She hung up, looked at me with something that might have been respect. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. I told her about the grief counseling group, about Dimitri's careful seduction, about the pregnancy engineered without consent, the isolation that followed, the doors that locked from the outside. I told her about the warehouse in Everett, the photographs of numbered girls, the ledgers documenting transactions that bought and sold human beings like commodities. I told her about the file with my name on it, about the forged documents and the life insurance policy, and the birth certificate that tried to rewrite my daughter's future before she'd even been born. And I told her about Sal, about a good man dying because he'd chosen to protect me, because Dimitri had decided collateral damage was an acceptable cost of maintaining control. When I finished, my voice was hoarse. My daughter had stopped kicking, settled into stillness as if she were listening too. Chen had filled an entire notepad with shorthand I couldn't read. Do you still have the file? She asked. I handed it to her, watched her face as she paged through it. As she saw what I'd seen, the meticulous documentation of a plan designed to trap me legally, financially, permanently. This is federal, she said finally. Trafficking, fraud, conspiracy. You're looking at agencies I can't even access, but Agent Reeves can. And with your testimony, with these documents, she looked at Mateo. You might actually pull this off. Pull what off? I asked. Chen's smile was thin and sharp, taking down the whole network. Not just Dimitri, everyone he's connected to, every politician, every business owner, every person who thought they could buy their way into his services without consequences. The scope of it staggered me. I'd been thinking about my own survival, my daughter's safety, but what Chen was describing was larger. Justice not just for me, but for Jessica Murray and all the numbered girls in those photographs. For every woman who'd trusted the wrong charming man and paid with her freedom or her life. What do I need to do? I asked. Right now? Nothing. Reeves will want to debrief you properly, get your statement on record. But Ms. Sokolova... She stood, tucked her notepad away. You just became the most important witness in Massachusetts. That makes you valuable. It also makes you vulnerable. You'll need protection. She has it, Mateo said. Chen looked at him. From you? The man every media outlet is calling Boston's most dangerous criminal? From me? From people who owe me favors? From a network that doesn't operate on jurisdiction or paperwork? His voice was steel wrapped in silk. Dmitry Kadyrov made a mistake. He thought killing my security team would scare me into backing off. Instead, he just declared war. And unlike the federal government, Detective, I don't need a warrant to fight back. The threat hung in the air, not directed at Chen, but at Dmitry, at everyone who thought they could hurt what Mateo considered his without consequences. Chen considered this. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. Keep her alive until Reeves can make this official. After that, witness protection will take over. No, I said. Both of them turned to look at me. No witness protection? No relocation, no disappearing into some generic suburb with a fake name and a manufactured history. I stood, one hand on my stomach. I'm done hiding. I'm done being moved around like a chess piece. I'll testify, I'll cooperate, I'll help you build your case, but I'm doing it from here, from my city, as myself. That's incredibly dangerous, Chen said. Being safe hasn't protected me yet. I looked at Mateo. But being seen has, being honest has, choosing to fight back instead of making myself smaller has. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. The silence stretched. Outside, the north end was beginning to wake. Delivery trucks rumbling over cobblestones, early risers heading to bakeries, the ordinary rhythms of people whose biggest danger was traffic. Finally, Chen sighed. Against my better judgment, I'm going to trust you know what you're doing. But I want daily check-ins. And if Reeves says you need to disappear, you disappear. Understood? Understood? She left with her officers. Marco locked the door behind them, reset the security, and then it was just me and Mateo in his apartment as dawn light started filtering through reinforced curtains. You should sleep, he said. Should, but I won't. Then at least lie down. For the baby. He led me to a bedroom I hadn't seen. His bedroom, clearly, with a bed actually made and books stacked on the nightstand, and the faint scent of cedar that meant this was where he came when the world got too heavy. Stay, I said as he turned to leave. He froze. Daria. Not like that. Just, I settled onto the bed, my body suddenly aware of every bruise, every exhaustion. Just stay, so I know someone's here. So I don't have to be alone with everything we just survived. For a long moment, I thought he'd refuse. Thought his sense of propriety or fear of overstepping would send him back to the living room to keep watch from a distance. Instead, he sat in the chair by the window, close enough to reach if I needed him, far enough to give me space to breathe. Get some rest, he said softly. I'm not going anywhere. I closed my eyes, felt my daughter settle, felt my own heartbeat slow. And as I drifted into something that wasn't quite sleep but wasn't quite consciousness either, I thought about promises and choices and the difference between being saved and choosing to save yourself. Mateo had given me that choice, had stepped back and let me decide what happened next, even when it scared him. That was different from Dimitri's control. That was different from the ways I'd been taught love looked. Maybe, I thought as sleep finally took me, maybe that was what actually mattered. When I woke, sunlight streamed through cracks in the curtains. Mateo still sat in his chair, watching the street below with the patience of someone used to waiting. My phone, the recovered, supposedly recycled phone, sat on the nightstand beside me. I picked it up. One new message. Not from an unknown number this time, but from Dimitri's actual contact. A photograph. My mother's building in Moscow. My sister walking to school. A red circle drawn around both of them. And beneath the image, words in Russian that translated to something simple and devastating. Did you really think running to Romano would keep them safe? The hospital has your medical records, the journal has dates, and now the FBI has your statement. You didn't escape, Daria. You just chose your executioner. The photograph sat on my phone screen like a curse I couldn't erase. My mother, my sister, red circles drawn around them like targets, like promises, like the inevitable conclusion to every choice I'd made since collapsing on Boylston Street. I stared at it until the image burned into my retinas, until I could see it even when I closed my eyes. Mateo was across the room before I'd finished reading. He took the phone from my trembling hands, studied the message with the kind of cold focus that meant he was already 3 steps ahead, already calculating responses I couldn't see. When was this taken? His voice was flat, dangerous. This morning. Look at the shadows. Early morning light, maybe 7, 8 o'clock Moscow time. My throat felt like I'd swallowed glass. That's the route Katya takes to school. She walks it every day, same time, same path. She's 17. She thinks she's invincible. Mateo made a call. Spoke in rapid Russian that I could barely follow, too fast, too technical. Words I'd never learned because my mother had wanted us to be American, to leave the old country behind. When he hung up, his expression hadn't changed, but something in his posture had shifted. Decision made. Problem being handled. Tell me you didn't, I said. Didn't what? Send someone after them. Send your people into Moscow to extract my family, like this is some kind of international incident you can solve with money and muscle. He sat down across from me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. The morning light caught the silver in his hair, made him look older than he was. Tired, human. I sent someone to watch them, he said carefully. Not extract, not interfere, just watch. Make sure the photograph is the extent of the threat, not the beginning of something worse. You had someone in Moscow already. I have someone everywhere. Not bragging, just fact. After Dmitry sent the flowers to your mother's apartment, I put protective surveillance on your family. Non-intrusive. They don't know anyone's watching. But if someone tries to hurt them, my people will see it coming. The information should have made me angry. More decisions made without my input. More control exercised in the name of protection. Instead, I felt something closer to gratitude. Dmitry had photographs. Mateo had people. In the calculus of violence, that might be enough to keep my family breathing. What does he want? I asked. This message isn't just a threat. It's a negotiation. He's telling me I have something he needs, and he's willing to hurt my family to get it. Your silence. Mateo handed my phone back. You talked to Chen. You agreed to work with the FBI. By now, Dmitry knows you're cooperating, so he's reminding you what cooperation costs. My mother, my sister, their safety in exchange for my testimony. Yes. I stood, paced to the window. The North End was fully awake now. Tourists already clogging the narrow streets, locals navigating around them with practiced efficiency, the whole neighborhood performing its daily routine like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I'd changed. The woman who'd collapsed on Boylston Street 3 days ago would have seen this photograph and immediately called Dmitry. Would have apologized. Would have agreed to anything to keep her family safe. The woman I was now saw the photograph and felt something different. Rage. I need to see it, I said. See what? Everything. The whole operation, not just the warehouse. I need to see the money trail, the connections, every piece of evidence that proves what he's been doing. Because if I'm going to testify, if I'm going to put my family at risk, I need to understand exactly what I'm fighting. Daria, you promised me truth. No protection, no filtering. I asked for honesty, and you agreed. I turned to face him. So show me. Show me everything Nina found. Show me why this matters beyond just my survival. He studied me for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, sent a text. Within minutes, Marco appeared with a laptop and a USB drive that probably cost more than my entire graduate education. Everything we've compiled, Marco said, handing them over. Financial records, shipping manifests, surveillance footage, witness statements. It's organized by date and severity. You want to start chronologically or by impact? Impact, I said. Show me the worst first. Show me what I'm really up against. What followed was 3 hours of systematic horror. Marco walked me through it methodically, his voice never wavering even when the content demanded emotion. I watched surveillance footage of girls arriving at Logan Airport, excited and hopeful, believing the promises they'd been sold. I watched those same girls, weeks later, hollow-eyed and mechanical, servicing men in hotel rooms that cost more per night than they'd make in a year. I read financial records showing payments flowing from legitimate businesses, restaurants I'd eaten at, law firms I'd walked past, political campaigns I'd seen advertised on television, into shell companies that existed only on paper. Money laundering disguised as consulting fees, as charitable donations, as business expenses. I saw photographs of men I recognized, a district attorney who'd run on a platform of protecting vulnerable populations, a CEO whose company donated millions to anti-trafficking organizations, a judge known for harsh sentences in exploitation cases. All of them, at one time or another, had been photographed in compromising positions with girls young enough to be their daughters. This is what Dmitry sells, Marco explained. Not just the girls themselves, but the insurance that comes with them. He documents everything, every transaction, every encounter, every moment that could destroy a career or a marriage or a legacy. Then he sells that insurance to the highest bidder, or uses it to ensure loyalty when money isn't enough. How many, my voice came out hoarse, how many girls over the years? Marco exchanged a look with Matteo. We've identified 43 in the last 5 years, but the operation's been running longer than that. Best estimate, over 100, maybe more. 100 women, 100 lives destroyed so men like Dimitri could accumulate power, and men like the district attorney could maintain their hypocritical public images. And I'd been married to him. I'd shared his bed. I'd let him touch me, let him get me pregnant, let him convince me that his control was actually love. The nausea hit fast. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was sick, my body rejecting everything, the images, the knowledge, the crushing weight of complicity. I'd been part of this, not actively, not knowingly, but my presence in Dimitri's life had given him legitimacy, had made him seem safe, respectable, reformed. Matteo appeared in the doorway with a glass of water. Didn't speak, didn't offer platitudes, just waited while I rinsed my mouth and tried to remember how to breathe. I was the proof, I said to my reflection, the grieving social worker who fell for the charming, reformed bad boy. I was the story that made everyone believe he'd changed. You were a target. There's a difference. Is there? I turned to face him. Because from where I'm standing, I chose this. I chose to believe him when every instinct I had screamed that something was wrong. I chose to ignore the locked doors and the canceled appointments and the way he made me feel like I was crazy for questioning anything. I chose, stop. Matteo stepped closer, his hands finding my shoulders. You chose to survive. That's what trauma does. It makes survival look like complicity because the alternative is dying. You did what you had to do to stay alive long enough to get out. That's not weakness. That's not stupidity. That strategy it doesn't feel strategic, it feels like cowardice. Then let me tell you what I see. His hands moved to frame my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. I see a woman who had every reason to give up, to stay small, to accept what was happening because fighting back seemed impossible. But instead, you collapsed on a public street where someone would find you. You could have waited until you were alone, could have let yourself die quietly in that locked apartment, but you didn't. Some part of you, even 7 months pregnant and starving, chose to be seen, chose to take the risk that maybe, possibly, someone would care enough to help. The words cracked something open in my chest. I'd been thinking of the collapse as failure, my body giving out, my inability to cope manifesting in the most humiliating way possible. But Matteo was reframing it. Not breakdown, but breakthrough. Not ending, but beginning. I didn't know it was you. I whispered. When I fell, I didn't know you'd be the one to find me. Would you have stayed if you'd known? The question hung between us. Honest, dangerous. 2 years ago, I'd left because loving Matteo had felt like drowning. His world too violent, his solutions too final, his inability to choose me over his obligations too painful to endure. I'd told myself I deserved better, softer, safer. And I'd found Dimitri instead. I don't know, I admitted. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have. I'd have run the other direction, convinced that your world was the danger I needed to escape. But now I understand that danger isn't always where you expect it. That violence wrapped in charm is more lethal than violence that announces itself. I stopped, searching for words that wouldn't sound like I was excusing the past or promising a future I wasn't ready to commit to. You've kept every promise you've made since you found me. Even the ones I didn't ask for. Even the ones that cost you. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe. Or recognition that we were finally having the conversation we should have had 2 years ago, before grief and pride destroyed us. Sal, he said quietly. That cost was Sal. And there will be others. If you stay in my life, if you let me keep protecting you, more people will pay the price of proximity to me. That's what I couldn't figure out how to tell you before. That's why I left instead of fighting for us, because I knew that loving me meant accepting that people around me sometimes die, and I couldn't ask you to live with that. You didn't ask. You decided for me. The old anger flickered. Familiar. You chose to leave rather than trust me to make my own choice about what I could handle. Yes. Don't do that again. I moved closer, one hand on my stomach where my daughter was waking up, starting her morning gymnastics routine. Don't decide what I can handle. Don't protect me from information because you think it'll hurt me. If we're doing this, if I'm staying in your world, letting you back into my life, then we do it as equals. You don't shield me. You don't filter. You trust that I'm strong enough to hear the truth and decide what to do with it. Even when the truth is ugly? Especially then. He reached out, placed his hand over mine on my stomach. Our daughter kicked against both our palms, oblivious to the negotiations happening around her, concerned only with her own growing need for space. She's running out of room, Mateo said. 7 weeks left, give or take. And then what? The question was bigger than biology. He was asking what happened after the baby arrived, after Dimitri was arrested or eliminated or whatever end his story came to, after the immediate crisis passed and we had to figure out what we actually were to each other beyond protector and protected. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know what normal looks like anymore. I don't know how to be someone's partner when I'm still learning how to be my own person again. But I know I don't want to do this alone. I know that when everything fell apart, you were the one who showed up. That has to count for something. It counts for everything, he said quietly. My phone buzzed, text from an unknown number, but the message was clear. An address in Cambridge, a time, noon today, and 3 words that made my blood run cold. Come alone, unarmed, or your mother bleeds first, then your sister, then you watch while they finish what they started. I showed Mateo. Watched his expression go from concern to calculating to absolutely livid in the space of 3 seconds. No, he said. Absolutely not. This is a trap. You know it's a trap. Of course it's a trap, but it's also the only play he has left. I checked the time. 3 hours. He knows I talked to the FBI. He knows I have evidence. His whole operation is about to collapse, and the only thing that might stop it is me recanting, or me disappearing, or me being so thoroughly discredited that my testimony becomes worthless. All the more reason not to go. All the more reason to go with a plan. I turned to Marco. Can you wire me? Video and audio. Something small enough that he won't find it in a basic search? Marco grinned. Feral. I can wire you with tech so advanced he'd need an electron microscope to find it, but you're not going in there without backup. Not negotiable. He said alone. He said a lot of things. Doesn't mean we have to obey. Mateo was already moving, pulling out his phone, making calls in that rapid-fire mix of languages that meant he was mobilizing his network. Marco, I want eyes on that address in 30 minutes. Nina, pull everything we have on the building, blueprints, security systems, exit points, and get Reeves on the phone. If we're doing this, we're doing it with federal backup, whether Dimitri knows they're coming or not. The apartment transformed into a war room. People appeared, some I recognized from the warehouse, others I'd never seen before, each with specific skills, specific roles. Someone brought body armor thin enough to hide under clothing. Someone else brought a purse with a false bottom that contained a tracking device and what looked like a very small, very illegal firearm. I'm not killing anyone, I said when they tried to show me how to use it. You're not, Marco agreed. But if it comes down to you or him, I'd rather you have options. By 11, I was dressed, wired, briefed, and terrified. Nina had confirmed the address was a vacant office building in Kendall Square, officially owned by one of Dimitri's shell companies, currently undergoing renovations that provided excellent cover for a private meeting. Mateo had people positioned on every floor, in every adjacent building, covering every angle. Agent Reeves had federal teams staging 2 blocks away, ready to move on my signal. It was as safe as walking into an obvious trap could be. Last chance to back out, Mateo said as Marco prepared to drive me. No, it isn't. I checked my reflection one final time. 7 months pregnant, wearing body armor under a coat that barely fit, about to confront my abuser with a wire and a prayer. Last chance was 3 days ago when I collapsed on Boylston Street. Everything after that has been forward motion. I'm not stopping now. He pulled me close, careful of the equipment, of my stomach, of all the fragile things that could break. If anything goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, you run. You hear me? You don't try to negotiate. You don't try to save anyone. You run, and you let us handle whatever comes after. I remember the rules. I stepped back, met his eyes. I'll be careful. I'll be smart. And I'll come back. Promise? The word hung between us, loaded with history. The last time I'd made him a promise, at our wedding, in front of his entire family, I'd broken it 2 years later when I'd signed the divorce papers. Promises between us felt dangerous, liable to shatter under the weight of good intentions and bad timing. But my daughter kicked, reminding me that some promises were bigger than fear. I promise, I said. The drive to Cambridge took 20 minutes. Marco didn't speak, just navigated with the efficiency of someone who'd memorized the route, the alternates, the emergency exits. We parked 3 blocks from the address. He walked me to the building's entrance, checked his watch. Noon. He said, "You're expected. 3rd floor. Office at the end of the hall. I'll be in the stairwell. Mateo's across the street. You say the word dangerous and we come in hot." Understood. Daria, he stopped me before I could enter. "For what it's worth, you're braver than half the men I've worked with. Don't let him convince you otherwise." The building was exactly as Nina had described. Gutted, mid-renovation, walls stripped to studs, and floors covered in construction dust. My footsteps echoed. The silence felt oppressive, expectant. I climbed stairs that creaked under my weight, one hand on the railing, the other on my stomach. 3rd floor, office at the end of the hall. The door stood open. Inside, Dimitri waited. He looked different, thinner, sharper, like someone had stripped away the veneer of charm and left only the calculating predator underneath. But he smiled when he saw me. That same warm expression that had made me trust him in grief counseling, that had convinced me he was safe. "Daria," he said, "I'm glad you came. Did I have a choice?" "We always have choices. That's what makes this interesting." He gestured to a chair, the only furniture in the empty office. "Sit, please. You look exhausted." I stayed standing. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. Your cooperation, your silence, your understanding that some battles can't be won by fighting." He moved closer, and I forced myself not to flinch. "You talked to the police?" "To the FBI. You showed them files you stole from my property. That was very disappointing, Daria. I thought we understood each other." "We do. I understand you're a trafficker who uses women as commodities. You understand I'm not going to stay silent about it." His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went cold. "Your mother is 63 years old. Your sister is 17. They live in a very dangerous city, you know. Moscow is full of crime, violence, accidents that happen to people who aren't careful. It would be terrible if something happened to them because you couldn't control your need to be heroic." The threat was so casual it took my breath away. This was the man I'd married, the man I'd let touch me, the man whose child I'd almost carried to term before I'd realized what he actually was. "You're not going to hurt them," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. No, because if you do, you lose your leverage. Dead family members don't inspire cooperation. They inspire revenge. And you're already dealing with enough problems without adding a vendetta to the list. He laughed. Actually laughed. "You've been spending too much time with Romano. Starting to think like him. But Daria, sweetheart, you're forgetting something important." "What's that?" He moved fast, too fast for someone who should have been concerned about surveillance, about witnesses, about the fact that this felt like a trap because it was one. His hand closed around my throat, not squeezing, just holding, just reminding me how quickly he could change the pressure from uncomfortable to lethal. "I don't need you alive," he whispered against my ear. "I just need you quiet. And there are so many ways to ensure silence." His hand on my throat felt like every nightmare I'd had since leaving him. The weight of control, the promise of violence held barely in check, the reminder that my body had never really been my own. But something had changed in the 3 days since I'd collapsed on Boylston Street. I'd watched a man die protecting me. I'd seen evidence of atrocities committed in the name of profit. I'd made promises to myself about who I would become, and fear wasn't part of that equation anymore. "The wire?" I said calmly, even as his fingers pressed against my pulse. "You're being recorded, video and audio, every word, every action, and the moment you actually hurt me, Federal agents will come through that door with enough evidence to bury you for the rest of your life. His grip loosened. Just slightly. Enough for me to breathe easier. You're bluffing. Am I? I met his eyes, held them. Search me if you want. You'll find the equipment. But by the time you do, it'll already be too late. Because I said the word, Dimitri. I said dangerous. That was the signal. They're already coming. For 3 seconds, he believed me. I saw it in the flicker of uncertainty, the way his attention shifted from me to the door. And in those 3 seconds, I understood something fundamental about power. It only worked when both parties agreed to the rules. Dimitri's power had always relied on my compliance, my willingness to believe I was helpless. But I'd stopped believing that. He released me, stepped back, pulled out his phone. You think Romano can protect you? His voice had lost its cultivated warmth, revealing the flat affect underneath, the real Dimitri, the one who saw people as resources to exploit or obstacles to eliminate. You think the FBI cares about one pregnant woman when they could take down an entire network? They'll use you, Daria. They'll wring every useful piece of testimony out of you, and then they'll leave you exposed while they build their case. That takes months, years, sometimes. How long do you think you'll survive? Longer than you. The certainty in my voice seemed to surprise him. Maybe it surprised me too, but it was true. I'd survived his control. I'd survived discovering what he really was. I'd survived an explosion and a manhunt, and the complete destruction of every naive belief I'd held about safety and trust. I was still standing, still breathing, still carrying a life that refused to quit despite everything trying to stop her. That had to count for something. Last chance, he said. Walk out of here with me. Tell the FBI you made a mistake, that you were confused, traumatized, that Romano manipulated you into making false accusations. I'll drop the charges against him. Your family stays safe. You get to raise your daughter without looking over your shoulder. Everyone wins. Except the 100 girls you've trafficked. Except Jessica Murray and all the others who died because you decided their lives were worth less than your profit margins. Except every woman who will come after me if I stay silent. Those girls chose their circumstances. They were children. They were lied to. They were trapped. My voice rose despite my attempt to stay calm. And I was almost one of them. The only difference between me and Jessica Murray is that I collapsed on a public street instead of in one of your apartments. That's it. That's the only thing that saved me. Romano saved you. Don't pretend this is about your own strength. You'd be dead right now if he hadn't happened to walk by. The words landed like he'd intended, a direct hit to the fragile confidence I'd been building. Because he was right, wasn't he? I hadn't saved myself. I'd just gotten lucky. Lucky that Matteo still cared enough to intervene. Lucky that his resources were mobilized fast enough to keep me alive. Lucky that chance had put me in the right place at the right time. Except I'd made choices too. I'd chosen to stay in that Beacon Hill apartment. I'd chosen to trust Matteo's care even when it felt uncomfortable. I'd chosen to look at the evidence instead of hiding from it. I'd chosen to call Detective Chen and tell the truth. Every step of this journey had involved me deciding what happened next, even when those decisions were terrifying. You're wrong, I said quietly. Romano gave me options, but I'm the one who chose them. I'm the one standing here telling you no. Not him. Me. Dimitri studied me like I was a problem he was trying to solve, an equation that should have worked but somehow didn't. Then he smiled, that empty, calculated expression that had fooled me for 18 months. Then I guess we're done negotiating. He moved toward the window. I should have run. Should have gotten out while I could. Let Matteo and Marco and whoever else was staged nearby handle whatever came next. But I needed to understand, needed to hear him say it. Why me? I asked. Out of all the women you could have targeted, why did you choose me specifically? He paused, hand on the window frame. Because you were perfect. Divorced from a known criminal, grieving a lost pregnancy, studying social work so you'd be credible when you testified about domestic violence. You checked every box. But you stayed. After you got what you needed, the marriage, the pregnancy, the cover story, you could have killed me and moved on. Instead, you kept me locked in that apartment for months. Why? The question seemed to genuinely puzzle him. He turned to face me, and for just a moment, I saw something almost human flicker across his features. Confusion. Uncertainty. The expression of someone who'd stopped understanding his own motivations. "I don't know," he admitted. "At first, it was strategic. Keep you alive until the baby came, then arrange an accident during childbirth. Tragic but common. Nobody questions complications in delivery." But then, he stopped, shook his head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're about to make a very stupid mistake." "What mistake?" "Believing that testimony will keep you safe. Believing that the law works the way you think it does. Believing that Romano's world is any different from mine." He stepped closer, lowered his voice. "We're the same, Daria. Him and me. We both use violence to solve problems. We both operate outside the rules. The only difference is the story we tell ourselves about why that's not true." "No," he gestured around the empty office. "He brought you here, put a wire on you, sent you into danger because it served his purposes. How is that different from me putting you in situations that served mine? Because he asked. Because he gave me the choice to refuse. Because when I said yes, it was my decision, not his manipulation. And you think that makes it better. That consent somehow erases the fact that you're being used as bait." The question hit harder than I wanted to admit. Because he had a point, didn't he? Matteo had asked, yes. But he'd also known I'd say yes. Had known my need to fight back. My desire to be more than a passive victim would make me agree to wear a wire and walk into an obvious trap. Was that really so different from the way Dimitri had known my grief would make me vulnerable to his attention? I thought about the rules Matteo and I had negotiated, the promises we'd made about truth and autonomy and treating each other as equals. I thought about the way he'd stepped back at the hospital, at the Beacon Hill apartment, at the warehouse, always giving me space to decide, even when those decisions scared him. "The difference," I said slowly, working through it as I spoke, "is that Matteo trusts me to know my own mind. You spent 18 months convincing me I didn't have one. That's not the same thing." "If you say so," Dimitri checked his watch. "And now I think we're out of time." He moved fast, faster than someone his size should have been able to move, diving through the window before I could process what was happening. Glass shattered. Alarms blared, and suddenly the room was full of people. Marco through the door, Matteo right behind him, Agent Reeves and half a dozen federal officers flooding the hallway. "Where is he?" Matteo demanded, checking me for injuries with hands that shook slightly despite his controlled expression. "Window." He jumped. I looked at the shattered frame, the 3-story drop to the alley below. "Is he dead?" Marco appeared from checking outside. "No. Son of a bitch landed on a dumpster, rolled and ran. We have people tracking him, but he knows this area. Could be anywhere by now." Agent Reeves was replaying the wire footage on her tablet, her expression satisfied. "We got enough. Explicit threats against you and your family, admission that he's been operating a trafficking network, confirmation that he planned to kill you during childbirth. This is solid, Ms. Sokolova. This will hold up in court. Assuming we can find him to bring him to court," Matteo said darkly, "we'll find him." Reeves's certainty felt practiced, professional. Men like Kadyrov can't hide forever. They need resources, connections, money. We've already frozen his accounts, issued warrants, alerted every agency from here to Moscow. He's running, but he's running into a net. "And my family?" I asked. "Protected. We have Russian authorities coordinating with your local contacts." She glanced at Matteo, and something unspoken passed between them. "They're being moved to a secure location. They'll stay there until Kadyrov is in custody." The relief should have been overwhelming. Instead, I felt hollow, exhausted. Like I'd been holding myself together through sheer force of will, and now that the immediate crisis had passed, all the cracks were showing. "I need to sit," I said, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. Matteo caught me before my knees gave out. Again, always catching me. I was so tired of falling. They took me to a different safe house, this one federal, with marshals instead of Matteo's crew, with protocols and paperwork and the kind of institutional safety that felt both reassuring and suffocating. Agent Reeves spent 3 hours debriefing me, asking questions that made me relive every moment of the last 18 months, taking notes that would eventually become testimony that would hopefully become justice. When she finally left, I sat in a beige room with beige furniture and wondered if this was what safety looked like. Colorless, controlled, completely devoid of personality. Mateo had been allowed to stay. Professional courtesy, Reeves had said, though I suspected it had more to do with the fact that removing him would have required force they weren't prepared to use. He sat across from me now, watching me the way he always did. Patient, present, waiting for me to be ready to speak. "You were right," I finally said. "About what?" "About Dimitri. About me being bait. About the fact that I was walking into danger because it served your purposes." His jaw tightened. "That's not..." "It is, though. You needed him to incriminate himself on tape. You needed me to get close enough to make that happen. And I agreed because I needed to feel like I had control over something. Like I was fighting back instead of just being protected. We used each other. Dimitri was right about that." "No." Mateo leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Dimitri sees the world as transactions. Everything is calculation, manipulation, people as tools to achieve goals. That's not what happened today. Then what did happen? You decided what you were willing to risk. I provided resources to minimize that risk. We worked together toward a shared goal. That's called partnership, Daria. That's called respecting someone enough to let them make dangerous choices. And if I died, if he'd actually hurt me instead of just threatening..." The question hung between us, sharp-edged. Mateo's hands curled into fists, his control slipping enough that I could see the fear underneath. "Then I would have failed you," he said quietly. "Again. Just like I failed you 2 years ago when you needed me and I wasn't there. Just like I failed everyone who's ever trusted me to keep them safe. Sal," I said, understanding. "Sal, and others before him. Good people who died because being close to me made them targets." He looked away, toward the window with its reinforced glass and view of nothing. "That's what Dimitri doesn't understand. The difference between us isn't the violence. We both hurt people. The difference is that his violence is calculated, and mine is reactive. He hurts people to get what he wants. I hurt people to protect what I love. That doesn't make it better. It just makes it different." "And what do you love?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Intimate and dangerous and necessary. He looked at me then. Really looked. And I saw everything he wasn't saying written in the tension around his eyes. The careful way he was holding himself back from reaching for me. "You," he said simply. "I love you. I never stopped. Not when you left, not when you married him, not when I found you collapsed on the street carrying someone else's child. I've loved you through every stupid decision, every moment of pride that kept me from fighting harder to keep you. And I know that's not fair. I know you're still healing, still figuring out who you are outside of trauma and control. But you asked, so I'm telling you the truth. I love you, and I will destroy anyone who tries to hurt you again, even if that person is me." The confession landed like a physical thing, heavy and real. I'd spent 18 months with Dimitri learning that declarations of love were weapons, tools to extract compliance and justify control. But Mateo's love felt different, frightening in its intensity, but honest in its vulnerability. He wasn't asking me to love him back. He was just answering my question. "I don't know how to do this," I said. "I don't know how to trust that you won't leave again when things get hard. I don't know how to separate the man who abandoned me from the man who's been showing up every day since you found me. I don't know. You don't have to know right now." He reached across the space between us, offered his hand palm up, an invitation, not a demand. "We have time. You have time. To heal, to decide, to figure out what you want instead of just reacting to what everyone else needs from you." I looked at his hand, scarred, calloused, steady. The hand that had held mine in the hospital, that had felt my daughter kick, that had pulled me from an explosion and kept me breathing when staying alive felt like too much work. I took it. 7 weeks, I said, until she's born. Can we just... I searched for the right words. Can we just focus on that? On getting through each day without trying to figure out what comes after. We can do whatever you need. I need you to keep showing up. Even when it's hard. Even when I'm angry or scared or pushing you away because that's what I know how to do. I need you to prove that you meant what you said about staying done. And I need you to understand that I'm broken right now. That the woman you fell in love with is buried under 2 years of grief and 18 months of abuse. And I don't know if she's coming back or if I'm becoming someone entirely different. Then I'll love whoever you become. Simple. Absolute. The kind of promise that should have felt impossible but somehow didn't. My daughter kicked. Hard enough that I gasped. Mateo's hand moved from mine to my stomach. Instinctive. Protective. She kicked again, and something in his expression cracked open. Wonder and grief and hope all tangled together. "She's strong," he murmured. "She has to be. Look at the family she's inheriting. She'll be safe. Whatever it takes, she'll be safe. I know." And I did. Whatever else was uncertain, whatever questions remained unanswered about us and our future and how we'd navigate the aftermath of all this trauma, I knew with absolute certainty that Mateo would protect my daughter. Not because she was his by blood, she wasn't, but because protecting the people he loved was how he measured his worth in the world. That night, I lay in a safe house bed that smelled like disinfectant and tried to sleep. Failed. My mind kept replaying the confrontation with Dimitri, his hand on my throat, his casual discussion of murdering me during childbirth, kept wondering where he was now, if he was watching, if the net agent Reeves promised was really as secure as she claimed. Around midnight, Mateo knocked softly on my door. "Can't sleep either?" he asked when I opened it. "Too much adrenaline. Too many thoughts. Come on." He offered his hand again, that gesture that was becoming familiar. "I want to show you something." He led me through the safe house to a room I hadn't noticed. Smaller, quieter, with a window that actually opened. The night air was cold but clean, carrying the scent of the city at rest. We sat on the floor, shoulders touching, watching Boston's distant lights. "After you left," he said quietly, "I used to drive past our old apartment, just to see if the lights were on, if you were home. I knew you weren't, knew you'd moved on, married someone else, built a life that didn't include me. But I'd drive past anyway, like maybe if I looked hard enough, I could undo the moment I walked away. I did the same thing and I admitted, not driving past, but I'd pull up your name on my phone, type messages I'd never send. Usually late at night when Dimitri was asleep, and I could pretend for a few minutes that I'd made different choices. What did the messages say? That I missed you, that I was scared, that maybe we'd given up too easily, let grief make us cowards instead of fighters. I leaned my head on his shoulder, exhausted by honesty but unable to stop. And then I'd delete them, because what was the point? We'd already failed once. Why risk failing again? We didn't fail. We quit. There's a difference. Is there? Failure is trying everything and still losing. Quitting is walking away because staying hurts too much. His arm came around my shoulders. Careful, tentative. We quit, Daria. Both of us. We let pain make us selfish. Let fear convince us that alone was safer than together. But we don't have to keep making that choice. What if I'm not ready? What if this baby comes and I'm still broken and I can't be what you need? Then you focus on being what she needs. And I'll be here, helping with that, asking nothing except the chance to keep showing up. It should have felt like pressure. Instead, it felt like relief. The absence of expectation, the gift of time and space to heal without performance or deadline. My daughter shifted, pressing against my ribs in that way that was starting to feel constant. 7 weeks left. 7 weeks until everything changed again. Until I had to figure out how to be someone's mother when I was still learning how to be myself. I'm terrified. I whispered. Of what? All of it. The birth, Dimitri finding us, failing her the way I failed everything else, discovering I'm not strong enough for any of this. Mateo's hand found mine, laced our fingers together. You collapsed on a public street rather than dying quietly where no one would see. You stayed in an apartment when every instinct screamed to run. You walked into a warehouse wearing a wire to confront the man who tried to erase you. You've survived things that should have destroyed you, and you're still here, still fighting. You're strong enough for anything. How do you know? Because I've seen you at your worst, grief-stricken, starving, 7 months pregnant and fleeing an explosion. And you're still the bravest person I've ever met. The words settled into the hollow places inside me, not filling them, but at least acknowledging they existed. We sat there until dawn started coloring the horizon, until the city began its morning rhythms, until the marshals knocked to let us know Agent Reeves was returning for another briefing. "Ready?" Mateo asked as I stood, stretched muscles stiff from sitting on the floor. "No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's all courage is. Doing the thing that terrifies you because the alternative is worse." Agent Reeves arrived with news. Dimitri had surfaced in New York, had been spotted near Brighton Beach where his network had originated. Federal teams were closing in. It was only a matter of time. "How much time?" I asked. "Days. Maybe hours." She set her tablet on the table, pulled up surveillance footage showing a figure that might have been Dimitri disappearing into a subway station. He's desperate, which makes him dangerous. But desperation also makes people sloppy. He'll make a mistake, and when he does, we'll be there. And my family? Safe, still in secure housing, still monitored 24 hours. She looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. "I know this is hard. The waiting, the uncertainty. But you did everything right, Ms. Sokolova. Your testimony is solid. Your evidence is irrefutable. When we bring him in, he's going away forever. That has to count for something." It did count. But counting and feeling were different things. And what I felt was exhausted, hollowed out, like I'd given everything I had to get to this point and didn't know how to keep going. Mateo saw it. He always saw it. "She needs rest," he told Reeves. "Real rest. Not sitting in a safe house waiting for the next crisis. I can't authorize her leaving protective custody until... Then I'll take responsibility. Any risk, any consequences, that's on me." His voice had that edge of absolute certainty that made smart people stop arguing. "She's 7 months pregnant and surviving on adrenaline. If you want her strong enough to testify, you let her recover somewhere she feels safe instead of trapped." Reeves studied him, then me, then sighed. 24 hours. I'll assign a protective detail, and you keep your phone on. But if anything feels wrong, you call immediately. Understood?" "Understood," I said. An hour later, I was back in Mateo's North End apartment, the one that smelled like anise and espresso and felt more like home than anywhere I'd been in 2 years. Someone had cleaned while we were gone. Fresh sheets on the bed, flowers in a vase I didn't recognize, groceries in the refrigerator that hadn't been there before. "Your mother," Mateo said when he saw me noticing. "She has a key. Likes to make sure I'm eating actual meals instead of coffee and stubbornness. Your mother knows I'm here. My mother knows everything. It's her superpower." He set my bag down, pulled out his phone. "She wants to meet you. Says any woman who can survive what you've survived deserves proper introduction to the family, but only when you're ready. No pressure." The normalcy of it, meeting the mother, family introductions, the ordinary rituals of building a life, felt surreal after weeks of safe houses and federal agents and constant vigilance. But maybe that was exactly what I needed. A reminder that life existed beyond crisis, that there were futures worth building if I could just survive long enough to reach them. "After she's born," I said, one hand on my stomach. "After Dimitri is caught. After I remember how to exist in the world without looking over my shoulder. Whenever you're ready." I slept for 14 hours. Woke to afternoon light and the smell of something cooking. Actual food. Not safe house cafeteria meals or protein bars consumed on the run. Mateo had made soup, the kind with vegetables and pasta and enough calories to feed an army. "Eat," he said, setting a bowl in front of me. Doctor's orders. Or more accurately, my mother's orders, which are more terrifying. I ate. Let the warmth and normalcy seep into bones that had been cold for too long. Let myself imagine, just for a moment, what life might look like on the other side of all this fear. My phone rang. "Agent Reeves." "We have him," she said without preamble. "Kadyrov. Federal agents apprehended him 3 hours ago at a warehouse in Queens. He's in custody. It's over." The words should have brought relief, joy, vindication. Instead, I felt nothing, just hollow numbness where emotions should have been. "Daria?" Reeves's voice, concerned. "Did you hear me? It's over. You're safe. Your family is safe. He can't hurt you anymore." "I heard you," I said distantly. "Thank you. For everything." I hung up, looked at Mateo, tried to find words for what I was feeling and came up empty. "It's over," I finally said. "They caught him. It's over." Mateo crossed the room, pulled me into his arms, and finally, I let myself break. Let the tears come, the sobs that shook my whole body, the release of months of fear and trauma and impossible choices. I cried for Sal, for Jessica Murray, for all the numbered girls in those photographs. I cried for the woman I'd been before all this, for the innocence I'd never get back. And I cried for relief, because it was over. The immediate danger had passed. My daughter would be born into a world where Dmitry Kadyrov couldn't touch her. "I've got you," Mateo murmured against my hair, holding me through the storm. "I've got you, and I'm not letting go." For the first time in longer than I could remember, I believed him. Freedom, I discovered, didn't arrive with fanfare. It came quietly, in the form of Agent Reeves's phone call and the sudden absence of the weight I'd been carrying for 18 months. Dmitry was in custody. My family was safe. The immediate danger had passed. I should have felt lighter. Instead, I felt unmoored, like someone had cut the strings that had been holding me upright, and now I had to figure out how to stand on my own. The days after his arrest blurred together. Federal prosecutors wanted statements, depositions, testimony preparation. The media wanted interviews. The pregnant woman who'd escaped a trafficking ring, the social worker who'd been married to a monster without knowing it, the ex-wife of a known criminal who'd somehow ended up the hero of her own story. I declined them all. Let Agent Reeves handle the press conferences while I learned how to exist in a world where my every movement wasn't monitored, where doors stayed unlocked, where I could walk to the corner store without an armed escort. It was harder than I'd expected. Mateo noticed, of course. He noticed everything. The way I checked the windows compulsively. The way I positioned myself in rooms so my back was never to the door. The way I startled at unexpected sounds. He didn't comment, just quietly rearranged furniture so I always had clear sight lines, installed better locks, made sure I was never alone when the panic attacks hit. They hit more often than I wanted to admit. 2 weeks after Dmitry's arrest, I woke at 3 a.m., convinced someone was in the apartment. My heart hammered. My breath came in shallow gasps. I knew, logically, rationally, that the apartment was secure, that Dmitry was in a federal holding facility awaiting trial, that I was safe. But my body didn't believe my brain. My body remembered locked doors and confiscated phones and the sound of footsteps approaching when I'd been trying to sleep. I found Mateo in the living room, reading by lamplight because he'd never needed much sleep. When he saw my face, he set the book aside. "Bad dream?" he asked quietly. "Bad everything." I sat beside him, pulled my knees to my chest as much as my stomach allowed. I thought I'd feel different. After they caught him, I thought the fear would just... I gestured vaguely. Stop, like flipping a switch. But it's still here, all of it. And I don't know how to make it go away. It won't go away, not completely. He shifted closer, careful not to touch without permission. Trauma doesn't work like that. It doesn't care that the danger's over. It just knows you survived something you shouldn't have, and it's trying to make sure you survive the next time too. There won't be a next time. Your nervous system doesn't know that. It's still in crisis mode, still scanning for threats. He paused. Have you thought about talking to someone? A therapist who specializes in trauma? The suggestion should have felt insulting. I had a master's in social work. I knew all about therapeutic interventions for PTSD and complex trauma. But knowing about something and being willing to accept help for it were different things. I'd spent so long being the person who helped others that admitting I needed help felt like failure. I don't know how to do that, I admitted. How to sit in a room with a stranger and say out loud all the ways I let him destroy me. You didn't let him do anything. He did it. You survived it. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, every choice I made brought me closer to that locked apartment. Every time I ignored my instincts, every time I accepted his explanations, every time I told myself I was overreacting, those were choices. Bad ones. Mateo was quiet for a long moment. Then, after you left, I saw someone, a therapist, someone who worked with veterans, people who'd seen violence and couldn't figure out how to live with what they'd done or witnessed. I fought it for months, told myself therapy was for people who couldn't handle their problems, that talking about feelings was weakness. What changed? I realized I was going to die. He said it matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. Not from external threats. From the internal ones. The guilt over leaving you, over every person who'd been hurt because of proximity to me, over all the choices I'd made that seemed right in the moment, but destroyed people in the aftermath. I was drowning in it, and I had two options: reach out or sink. So you reached out. So I reached out. And it didn't fix anything immediately. Didn't make the guilt disappear or bring back the people I'd lost. But it gave me tools to survive the guilt instead of being consumed by it. Gave me language to understand what I was feeling instead of just reacting. I thought about that. The difference between understanding emotions and being controlled by them. About how Dimitri had used my inability to name what was happening to keep me trapped. How the confusion and self-doubt had been as effective as any physical restraint. I'll think about it. I said, "That's all I'm asking." My daughter kicked, protesting my cramped position. I shifted, trying to find comfort in a body that felt increasingly foreign. 6 weeks left. 6 weeks until she arrived, and I had to figure out how to be someone's mother when I was still trying to remember how to be myself. "Are you scared?" Mateo asked, watching my hands move over my stomach. Of childbirth? Terrified? Of everything after? More than I can articulate? You'll be good at it. Being her mother? How do you know? Because you've kept her alive through everything that should have killed you both. Because you've made every choice with her safety in mind, even when those choices cost you. Because you're already doing the work of parenting, protecting her, advocating for her, making sure she has a future worth living. The word settled something in me I hadn't known needed settling. I'd been so focused on survival that I hadn't stopped to acknowledge I was already parenting, already making decisions that put her needs above my fear. "Will you be there?" I asked quietly. "When she comes?" Not because you have to, but I struggled to articulate what I needed. I don't want to do it alone, and you've been there for everything else. I'll be there. Simple. Certain. Wherever you want me. However you need me. I'll be there. 3 days later, I met with Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the detective, though they shared the same last name and the same direct way of speaking that suggested neither suffered fools. She specialized in complex trauma, particularly cases involving intimate partner violence and systemic abuse. Agent Reeves had recommended her specifically, said she'd worked with other women who'd survived trafficking situations. Her office was nothing like the sterile therapy rooms I'd imagined, books everywhere, plants that looked actually healthy, a couch that had clearly been selected for comfort rather than professional aesthetics. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with gray streaking through black hair she hadn't bothered to dye, wearing jeans and a sweater that suggested we were two people having a conversation rather than therapist and patient. "Tell me why you're here," she said after we'd settled in. Not "tell me what happened" or "tell me about your trauma." Just why I'd chosen to show up. Because I'm 6 weeks from giving birth, and I don't know how to be a mother when I can't trust my own judgment about who's safe and who's dangerous. Because I wake up at night convinced I'm still locked in that apartment. Because everyone keeps telling me I survived. But survival doesn't feel like what's happening. It feels like I'm just existing, going through motions, waiting for the next disaster. Okay, she made a note. "So you're functioning but not living, moving but not choosing, breathing but not believing you deserve the air." The accuracy stung. Yes, that's normal. Traumatic stress isn't something you just shake off because the danger's over. Your nervous system learned that the world is fundamentally unsafe, that the people you trust will hurt you, that your instincts can't be trusted. Unlearning that takes time. How much time? Depends. On you, on your support system, on your willingness to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. She set down her notepad. "I'm not going to lie to you, Daria. This is going to be hard. Healing trauma means revisiting it, understanding it, processing all the emotions you couldn't afford to feel while you were surviving. That's painful work. But the alternative is spending the rest of your life controlled by fear of things that aren't happening anymore. And if I can't do it, if I'm too broken, you're not broken, you're injured. There's a difference." She leaned forward slightly. Broken suggests unfixable. Injured suggests healing is possible with proper care. And everything I've heard about your situation suggests you're very good at surviving. Now we need to teach you how to live. We spent the rest of the session establishing what she called a baseline, understanding where I was emotionally, physically, psychologically. She asked about sleep patterns, eating habits, intrusive thoughts, nightmares, asked about my support system, my resources, my plans for after the baby arrived, asked about Mateo. "He's been good to you," she noted. "Since he found you on Boylston Street." "Yes, but you're still cautious around him. Still waiting for him to leave or hurt you or prove that his care is conditional." The observation hit like a physical blow. We were married before. It ended badly. Because I lost a baby and he wasn't there. And then he left instead of fighting to keep us together. And I spent 2 years convinced that proved I wasn't worth staying for. The words came faster than I'd intended. 18 months of resentment and hurt spilling out. And then Dimitri showed up and made me feel valuable, made me feel chosen. And I believed him because I needed to believe someone would stay, that someone would pick me first. But Dimitri didn't stay. He trapped. Yes. And now Mateo's back and he's staying. But you don't trust it because you've learned that people who promise to stay are often the ones who hurt you most. I couldn't speak, could only nod. "That's going to be part of our work," Dr. Chen said gently. "Learning to distinguish between care and control, learning to trust your instincts again, learning that you're allowed to need people without that need making you weak or dependent or vulnerable to exploitation." By the time I left her office, I felt raw, exposed, like she'd taken a scalpel to defenses I'd spent years building and laid bare every wound I'd been trying to ignore. But I also felt something else. Hope. Small, fragile, barely there, but present. The possibility that maybe, eventually, I could be someone other than a woman defined by what had been done to her. Mateo was waiting in the car. Didn't ask how it went. Just drove us to the north end in silence that felt companionable rather than awkward. When we got back to the apartment, he made tea, the Russian kind my mother used to make, with honey and lemon, and sat with me while I tried to find words for what I was feeling. "She's right," I finally said. "Dr. Chen, about me not trusting that you'll stay, about me waiting for you to leave again. I know, and I don't know how to stop. Don't know how to believe that this," I gestured between us. "Whatever this is, it's real, and not just temporary crisis management. Then don't believe it yet." He set his tea down. "Just watch. Watch me show up every day. Watch me keep promises. Watch me prove that I meant what I said about staying. You don't have to trust it. You just have to let me do it. What if I never get there? What if I'm too damaged to—" "You're not damaged. You're healing. There's a difference." He smiled slightly. "Your therapist said that, didn't she? How did you know?" "Because mine said the same thing. 2 years ago, when I was convinced I was too broken to deserve happiness. He told me that healing isn't linear, isn't fast, isn't something you can force. It's just something you do, day by day, choice by choice, until one morning you wake up and realize you're not just surviving anymore. Are you there? Not just surviving?" He considered the question seriously. "Most days, yes. Some days, no. Some days I still wake up convinced everyone I love is better off without me, that my presence in their lives makes them targets. But those days are fewer now. And when they come, I have tools to survive them instead of being destroyed by them." Tools like what? Therapy. Honest conversations with people I trust. Reminding myself that my worth isn't measured by whether anyone gets hurt in proximity to me. It's measured by what I do when they do, how I respond, how I fight to protect them or avenge them or honor their memory. He paused. "And sometimes, the tool is just getting through the next 5 minutes, then the next, until eventually it's tomorrow and you survived another day." I thought about that framework, healing as a series of small survivals, accumulated over time until they added up to something resembling a life. It felt more achievable than the dramatic transformation I'd been imagining, the moment where everything suddenly made sense and I was whole again. 5 minutes at a time? I said, 5 minutes at a time. My water broke 3 weeks later, at 2 a.m, while I was standing in Mateo's kitchen trying to decide if I was hungry or just anxious. One moment, I was debating between crackers and fruit. The next, I was standing in a puddle, experiencing the surreal disconnect between knowing what was happening and not quite believing it was happening to me. "Mateo, I called, my voice remarkably calm considering I was about to give birth to a daughter I still didn't feel prepared to raise. He appeared instantly, took in the situation with one glance, and shifted into efficient crisis mode. Okay. Hospital bag? Bedroom closet, already packed. Car's out front. Mateo. I caught his hand. I'm scared. He stopped, looked at me with eyes that held everything we'd survived together and everything we still hadn't figured out. I know, but you're the bravest person I've ever met, and you're about to do the most incredible thing a human can do. And I'm going to be right there the entire time, unless you decide you don't want me there, in which case I'll be in the waiting room losing my mind with worry. I want you there. Then I'm there. The drive to Mass General took 12 minutes, the same hospital where this had started, where Mateo had found me dehydrated and malnourished and 7 months pregnant. Full circle, except this time I was arriving on my terms, healthy and ready, with someone beside me who'd proven he meant it when he said he'd stay. Labor lasted 14 hours. 14 hours of contractions that felt like my body was trying to turn itself inside out, of breathing exercises that barely touched the pain, of cursing Mateo in 2 languages and crushing bones in his hand I didn't know could break. He took it all, the pain I inflicted, the anger I needed to express, the vulnerability of being completely out of control while my body did what it was designed to do. Dr. Osei appeared around hour 10, checked my progress with efficient gentleness. You're doing beautifully, she said. Another few hours and we'll be meeting your daughter. A few hours? I wanted to die. Wanted this to be over. Wanted someone to explain why evolution had designed such a brutal process for bringing life into the world. A few hours, she confirmed. And then it's done, and you'll have your girl, and you'll forget every minute of this pain. She was wrong about that last part. I remembered every minute. Every contraction that built and peaked and finally released. Every moment of doubt where I was convinced I couldn't do this, couldn't survive this, couldn't possibly push a human being out of my body. Every time Mateo's voice cut through the pain with steady reassurance, you're doing it. You're almost there. She's coming. I can see her. Elena Sofia Romano Sokolova arrived at 3:47 in the morning on a Thursday in December. Screaming her displeasure at the cold and the lights and the sudden absence of the warm darkness she'd known for 9 months. They placed her on my chest, all 7 pounds of fury and perfection and terrifying responsibility, and I looked into her face and felt everything shift. This was why I'd survived, not for myself, not for justice or closure or any abstract concept of healing. For her, so she could exist. So she could have a life unmarred by the violence that had nearly prevented her birth. She's perfect, Mateo whispered, his hand gentle on her head, his voice wrecked with wonder. She is. I couldn't stop staring at her. Couldn't stop cataloging her features. My nose, dark hair that might have come from either Dimitri or some distant genetic memory, hands that already seemed to grab at the world like she was afraid it might disappear. What does her name mean? He asked. Elena is light. Sophia is wisdom. I adjusted her slightly, marveling at how something so small could feel so substantial. I wanted her to have a name that meant something hopeful. Something that suggested she could be both bright and smart, that she wasn't limited by where she came from. She won't be. He looked at me then, fully. She's going to have every opportunity, every advantage, every chance to become whoever she wants. I promise you that. You can't promise that. You can't control everything. No, but I can make sure she grows up knowing she's loved, she's protected, she's valued, that she never has to earn safety or acceptance or care. It's just given, freely, because she exists. His hand found mine, the one not holding Elena. And I can make sure her mother has the same thing. If you'll let me. The proposal hung between us, less about romantic commitment and more about the daily choice to build a family from the wreckage of everything we'd survived. I looked at him. This man who'd found me collapsed on a sidewalk and had refused to let me disappear, who'd kept every promise even when keeping them cost him, who'd learned to step back and let me choose instead of choosing for me. Ask me again, I said. In a year. When we've had time to figure out who we are outside of crisis. When I've had therapy and time and space to become someone who can choose you from strength instead of need, I can wait a year. Can you? I've waited 2 already. What's one more if it means you're choosing me because you want to, not because you think you have to? Elena made a small sound, not quite crying, just acknowledging her presence in this conversation about her future. I looked down at her. This perfect creature who had no idea how much love and violence and hope had gone into ensuring she could exist. 1 year, I said, and then we'll see. Mateo smiled, genuine, relieved, patient. 1 year. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days while they monitored Elena and made sure I was recovering properly. Mateo barely left, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside my bed, learning how to change diapers with the focused intensity he usually reserved for complex problems. His mother visited, a force of nature named Rosa, who took one look at Elena and started crying, then immediately began giving instructions about feeding schedules and sleeping arrangements and family traditions I was expected to learn. She's overwhelming. Mateo apologized after Rosa had left with promises to return with food and more advice. She's wonderful, I corrected. She cares. That's not overwhelming. That's family. My own mother called from Moscow, her voice thick with tears she was trying to hide. They'd told her, Mateo's people, Agent Reeves's coordination with Russian authorities, that she could come visit once everything was settled, once Dmitri's trial was over, and it was safe for her to travel without risking her safety. You did it, she said in Russian. You survived. You brought her into the world. I'm so proud of you, Lyubov moya. I had help, I said, watching Mateo hold Elena with the kind of careful wonder that suggested he'd never held anything so precious. Good. You should have help. You should have people who stay. When we brought Elena home to the North End apartment, reality hit with the force of a freight train. This was real. I was responsible for keeping this tiny human alive, for teaching her how to exist in a world that had tried very hard to prevent her existence. The weight of it was staggering, but I wasn't alone. Mateo was there for midnight feedings, for the 3 a.m. panic attacks when I was convinced I was doing everything wrong, for the moments when exhaustion made me forget there was anything beyond the endless cycle of feeding and changing and soothing. Doctor Chen came to the apartment twice a week, made house calls despite that not being standard practice, said new mothers needed support in their actual environment, not just her office. Slowly, incrementally, I learned how to be Elena's mother. Learned her different cries, hunger versus discomfort versus just needing to be held. Learned that loving her didn't require perfection, just presence. Learned that the fear I'd been carrying, that I'd fail her the way I felt I'd failed myself, was just fear, not prophecy. 3 months after Elena was born, Dmitri's trial began. I testified on a Tuesday, wearing a suit Mateo's mother had helped me select, my daughter with a nanny we'd carefully vetted. I sat in that witness box and told the truth, all of it, unflinching, letting the jury see every manipulation, every control mechanism, every moment of violence wrapped in care. Dmitri watched from the defense table, his expression neutral, like he was observing a particularly boring business meeting. But when I described finding those photographs in the warehouse, when I named Jessica Murray and asked the jury to imagine her final moments, something flickered across his face. Not remorse, recognition, the understanding that I'd stopped being his victim and become his ending. The verdict came a week later. Guilty on all counts. Human trafficking, conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for the following month, but the prosecutor assured me he'd never see freedom again. Multiple life sentences, federal prison, no possibility of parole. It should have felt like closure. Instead, it felt like an ending to a chapter I was already past, like confirming something I'd already processed and moved beyond. How do you feel? Dr. Chen asked during our next session. Relieved. Angry that it took so long. Grateful it's over. Sad for everyone who didn't survive to see him convicted. I paused. And surprisingly okay. Like this was necessary, but not healing. The healing is happening elsewhere. Where? I thought about morning routines with Elena. About Mateo teaching her Italian words she couldn't possibly understand yet. About Rosa's weekly visits where she taught me family recipes and told me stories about Mateo as a child. About the community health clinic where I'd started working part-time, helping other women navigate systems designed to trap them. Everywhere else, I said. In all the ordinary moments that add up to a life. 6 months later, Spring arrived in Boston with that particular violence that makes you forget winter ever happened. The North End burst into bloom, window boxes overflowing with flowers, cafe tables appearing on sidewalks, the whole neighborhood emerging from hibernation. Elena had learned to roll over, was working on sitting up, spent her days observing the world with serious concentration that suggested she was cataloging everything for future reference. She looked more like me than Dmitri, a relief I hadn't known I needed until I saw my own features reflected in her face. Matteo and I had developed rhythms that felt less like cohabitation and more like partnership. Shared responsibilities, shared decisions, shared moments of exhaustion and joy, and the thousand small crises that came with raising an infant. But we hadn't talked about us. About what we were to each other beyond co-parents and former spouses and people who cared deeply but hadn't defined the terms. Until one evening in May, when Elena was asleep and we sat on the small balcony watching the neighborhood settle into dusk. "It's been a year," Matteo said quietly. I knew exactly what he meant. A year since I'd told him to ask again. A year since I'd said I needed time to choose from strength rather than need. "It has," I confirmed, and I thought about the woman I'd been 12 months ago. Scared, traumatized, convinced she'd never feel whole again. I thought about the work I'd done with Dr. Chen, the ways I'd learned to distinguish between care and control, the slow rebuilding of trust in my own judgment. I thought about the life I'd built that didn't require Matteo but was better with him in it. "Ask me," I said. He turned to face me fully. "Daria Romano Sokolova, will you marry me? Not because you need protection or resources or someone to make decisions for you, but because we're better together than apart. Because we've learned how to be partners. Because I love you. And I hope, you love me too. I do love you." The words felt both enormous and simple. I love the man you've become. The one who asks instead of assumes. The one who keeps showing up even when it's hard. The one who's teaching our daughter that love means presence, not possession. So is that a yes? It's a yes. But with conditions. He smiled. Name them. We do this as equals. No defaulting to you making decisions because you think you know better. No protecting me from information because you think it'll hurt me. We talk. We negotiate. We figure things out together. Agreed. What else? I keep working. Keep seeing Dr. Chen. Keep building a life that's mine, not just an extension of yours. Wouldn't want it any other way. Anything else? Elena keeps both our names. I don't want her to have to choose between her histories. I want her to know she comes from both of us, that both parts of her story matter. Done. He pulled out a ring I hadn't noticed. Simple, elegant, nothing like the ostentatious diamond Dmitri had given me. This was my grandmother's. "Rosa thought you should have it. If you said yes." I looked at the ring, at this man, at the life we'd built from the ruins of everything that should have destroyed us. "When? Whenever you want. Tomorrow, next year, whenever you're ready. Small," I said. "Just family. Just the people who matter." "Small," he agreed. We married on a Saturday in June, in the small garden behind Rosa's house in the North End. Elena wore a white dress Rosa had made by hand, kept grabbing at flowers with the concentration of someone on an important mission. My mother flew in from Moscow, cried through the entire ceremony, held her granddaughter like she was afraid to let go. Dr. Chen came, and Agent Reeves, and Marco, and the small network of people who'd helped us survive the year that had nearly killed us. Father Michael from the neighborhood church performed the ceremony, mixing English and Italian and enough Russian to make my mother smile. The vows were simple, honest, stripped of the flowery language that made promises sound easy. "I promise to stay," Matteo said. "Even when it's hard, even when you're angry with me. Even when we disagree about how to solve problems, I promise to ask instead of assume, to listen instead of fix, to love you as you are, not as I want you to be. I promise to trust you," I said, even when fear tells me not to. Even when my instincts scream that everyone leaves. I promise to tell you when I'm struggling instead of pretending I'm fine. To build a life with you, not just survive beside you. To choose you every day, not because I have to, but because I want to. We exchanged rings, kissed while our small gathering applauded. Elena made a sound that might have been approval, or might have just been gas, and everyone laughed. The reception was exactly what we'd wanted. Food Rosa had spent days preparing, music from a neighbor who played violin, Elena being passed from person to person like the most precious package. No speeches, no formality, just people who'd earned their place in our lives celebrating that we'd made it through everything trying to stop us. That night, after the guests had left and Elena was asleep in her crib, Mateo and I stood on our balcony watching the city. "No regrets?" he asked. "About today?" "None. About everything it took to get here?" I leaned into him. Too many to count. But also none, because if any of it had been different, we wouldn't be here. Elena wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have learned what we needed to learn. That's very philosophical for midnight. That's very exhausted for midnight. I smiled. But true. I spent so long wishing I could go back and make different choices. Not marry Dimitri. Not leave you. Not believe that safety looked like anything other than what it actually is. But Dr. Chen helped me understand that I can't change the past. I can only decide what I do with what I learned from it. And what did you learn? That love isn't ownership. That protection isn't control. That choosing someone from strength is completely different from needing them from weakness. That I'm capable of surviving things I thought would destroy me. That healing isn't linear or fast or something you accomplish and then stop working on. It's just life. Every day. Making choices that honor who you're becoming instead of who you were. He pulled me closer. I learned something too. What? That leaving was the worst decision I ever made. That you deserved better than someone who ran when things got hard. That second chances are gifts, not guarantees, and I'll spend the rest of my life earning the one you gave me. You already have, I said. Every day you showed up. Every promise you kept. Every moment you stepped back and let me choose instead of choosing for me. You've already earned it. We stood there in comfortable silence. Two people who'd learned the hard way that love required more than feeling. It required action, daily commitment, the choice to stay even when staying was hard. Inside, Elena started crying. We moved together, practiced partners in the dance of parenthood, taking turns soothing her back to sleep. And as I held my daughter, watching Mateo adjust her blanket with the kind of careful attention that had become his default, I thought about the woman who'd collapsed on Boylston Street 18 months ago. She'd believed she was dying. Believed her story ended on that sidewalk, in the cold, having failed at everything that mattered. She'd been wrong. Her story had just been beginning. They say facing danger is how you get lost. I learned the opposite. It was only when I stopped looking away that I finally found myself. 5 years after Mateo found me collapsed on Boylston Street, I stood in the backyard of our Charlestown home, watching Elena chase butterflies through the garden Rosa had helped me plant. The sea breeze drifted through the air, carrying salt and the promise of summer. My daughter was 5 now, all wild curls and fierce opinions, speaking 3 languages with the ease of someone who'd never known borders mattered. She looked like me, moved like me, had inherited my stubbornness and my tendency to ask questions that had no easy answers. But she had Mateo's patience too, his ability to observe before acting, his quiet certainty that the world would bend if you pushed in the right places. "Mama, look!" She held up a monarch butterfly that had landed on her palm, its wings opening and closing with delicate precision. "She trusts me. That's because you're very still, very gentle. Papa says that's how you earn trust, by being still enough that people can see you're safe." I smiled at the wisdom filtered through a 5-year-old's understanding. Mateo had been teaching her about trust and safety in age-appropriate ways, not the mechanics of his world, but the principles underneath. How to read people, how to know when someone meant what they said, how to protect yourself without becoming someone who hurt others. It was a delicate balance, raising a child in proximity to violence while ensuring she understood that violence wasn't the answer. It was just sometimes the question you had to navigate. "Time for lunch," I called. The butterfly departed, and Elena ran toward me with the kind of unselfconscious joy that still surprised me. That this existed. That I'd survived long enough to witness it. Inside, Mateo was setting the table, something that had become ritual for us. The shared responsibility of maintaining a home, of building normalcy in lives that had started in crisis. He looked older now, more silver in his hair, lines around his eyes that mapped the years. But he'd kept every promise, had been there for every milestone, Elena's first steps, her first words, the night terrors that had plagued her third year when her developing brain tried to process things she'd sensed but couldn't articulate. He'd learned to braid her hair, to sing Russian lullabies I'd taught him phonetically, to have conversations about fairness and justice that didn't rely on simple answers. He'd become the father I hadn't known to hope for, not biological, but chosen, present, constant. "How was the clinic this morning?" he asked, as Elena washed her hands with the thoroughness of someone who took hygiene very seriously. "Good. We had 3 new intakes, 2 domestic violence situations, 1 trafficking survivor from Lynn." I helped Elena into her chair, then sat across from Mateo. The survivor reminded me of myself. That particular combination of defiance and terror. Like she couldn't decide if she wanted to fight or disappear. "What did you tell her?" "That both are okay. That healing isn't linear. That some days you'll feel strong and some days you'll feel like you're drowning, and all of it is normal." I picked at my salad, thinking about the woman's face, young, maybe 23, with eyes that had seen too much too soon. And I told her my story. Not all of it, but enough that she knew I understood. Mateo reached across the table, found my hand, a gesture that had become automatic over 5 years of marriage, of partnership, of learning each other's languages. "You're good at this," he said quietly. "Helping people, giving them hope that surviving is possible. I had a good teacher." I squeezed his fingers. "You taught me that showing up matters more than having answers. That presence is sometimes the only gift that matters." Elena looked between us with the serious concentration she applied to everything. Why do people hurt each other? The question hung in the afternoon air, innocent and impossible. We'd known it was coming. Dr. Chen had warned us that children Elena's age started grappling with concepts of good and evil, trying to understand why the world contained both beauty and pain. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "people hurt others because they're in pain themselves. Because they learned that hurting is how you get power, how you stay safe, how you control things that scare you. It's not right. It's not okay. But it's why. But you were hurt and you don't hurt people. No. I made different choices. I had people who helped me see that pain doesn't have to become more pain. That you can feel hurt and angry and scared without making other people feel those things too. Like Papa. Like Papa." I agreed. "And like your Nona Rosa and Dr. Chen and everyone who showed me that being strong doesn't mean being hard. It means being honest about when you need help." Elena processed this with the gravity of someone twice her age. "I'm glad you needed help. Because then Papa found you. And then I got to exist." The simple wisdom of it, the recognition that the worst thing that had happened to me had been necessary for her existence, should have been painful. Instead, it felt like grace, like the universe offering a trade I couldn't refuse. Survive the unsurvivable, receive this perfect creature who asked impossible questions and caught butterflies and believed the world could be gentle. After lunch, after Elena had gone down for her rest time that she was rapidly outgrowing, Mateo and I sat on the porch steps overlooking the small yard we'd spent 5 years cultivating. Roses climbed the fence, the same kind Dimitri had sent my mother, reclaimed and repurposed into something beautiful instead of threatening. Tomatoes ripened in neat rows. Herbs sprawled with wild abandon near the kitchen door. "I got a call this morning," Mateo said. "From Reeves?" I tensed, despite myself. Agent Reeves only called when something significant had happened, when the past we'd tried to move beyond needed attention. "Dimitri?" I asked. "Dead. Heart attack in his cell last night. Guards found him this morning." The information settled into my chest like a stone. I waited for relief, for satisfaction, for any of the emotions I'd imagined I'd feel when this moment came. Instead, I felt nothing. Just the flat acknowledgement that a man who'd tried to erase me had been erased himself. "How do you feel?" Mateo asked, reading my silence accurately. "I don't know. Like it should matter more than it does." I pulled my knees to my chest, wrapped my arms around them. "He tried to kill me. He would have succeeded if you hadn't found me, and now he's dead and I feel nothing. Like he's already been irrelevant for so long that his actual death changes nothing. That's healthy, actually. It means you've processed what he did without letting it define you." Dr. Chen said the same thing. Years ago, when I was still terrified he'd escape somehow, that the conviction wouldn't hold, that he'd find a way to hurt Elena. I looked at the garden, at the life we'd built in the aftermath. She told me that healing meant reaching a point where he became just a fact of my history, not the organizing principle of my present. And is he? Just a fact? I thought about the woman who'd walked into Dr. Chen's office 5 years ago, raw and traumatized and convinced she'd never feel whole again. Thought about the work I'd done, the therapy, the late-night conversations with Mateo about trust and autonomy, the slow rebuilding of confidence in my own judgment. Thought about the life I'd built, the clinic where I helped other survivors, the family I'd chosen, the daughter who knew safety because I'd learned how to create it. Yes, I said. He's just a fact. Something that happened that shaped me but doesn't control me. Is that terrible? Should I feel more? You should feel whatever you feel. There's no right way to process this. I paused, searching for honesty. I think I mourned him a long time ago, when I realized who he really was. When I understood that the man I'd married never existed, he was just a construct designed to trap me. So I've already done the grief work. This is just paperwork. Just the universe confirming what I'd already accepted. Mateo pulled me against his side, and we sat in comfortable silence watching shadows lengthen across the garden. After a while, he spoke again. Elena asked me yesterday what I do for work. What did you tell her? That I help people solve problems? That sometimes people have conflicts they can't resolve on their own, and I help them find solutions? He smiled slightly. She asked if that meant I was like a teacher. I said yes, kind of like a teacher. She's going to figure it out eventually, that your world is more complicated than problem solving. I know, but for now, she gets to be 5. She gets to believe that the world is basically good, that people can be trusted, that her parents' biggest concern is whether she eats her vegetables. And later, we tell her the truth, age-appropriately, carefully, but honestly. We tell her that I come from a world that operates outside the rules, that violence is sometimes part of that world, but that we've chosen to build a life where violence is the last option, not the first. We tell her that people are complicated, that someone can love their family fiercely and still do things that hurt others. We teach her to navigate complexity instead of demanding simplicity. It was the same conversation we'd had dozens of times, refining our approach to parenting a child who existed at the intersection of multiple worlds. We'd made choices. Mateo had stepped back from the most violent aspects of his work, delegated operations to people he trusted, focused on the legitimate businesses that now comprised most of his income. But he hadn't left entirely. Wouldn't. Because that world was part of his identity, part of how he understood himself. I'd made peace with that. With loving someone who occupied moral gray spaces I couldn't fully embrace but had learned to accept. Because Mateo had also made peace with me, with my need for autonomy, my insistence on working despite the theoretical safety of just being his wife, my continued therapy and the ways I sometimes needed to process trauma alone before I could share it. We'd learned that love didn't require sameness. It required honesty, negotiation, the willingness to hold space for each other's complications. Do you ever regret it? I asked, staying with me, taking on Elena, building this life instead of something simpler. Never. Not for a single moment. He turned to look at me fully. You and Elena are the best thing that ever happened to me. The thing that made everything else make sense. Before you, I was just surviving, making money, accumulating power, but never understanding why. You gave me purpose. You gave me a reason to be better than I thought I could be. That's a lot of pressure to put on a relationship. It's not pressure. It's gratitude. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture tender and familiar. I'm grateful you survived. I'm grateful you gave me a second chance. I'm grateful that every day you choose to stay. Where else would I go? I smiled. You make excellent coffee. You've learned to braid hair, and you don't complain when I wake you up at 2 a.m. because I'm having anxiety about whether I'm screwing up our child. You're not screwing up our child. Elena is smart, kind, confident, and aware that the world contains both beauty and danger. That's good parenting. Our child. The phrase still sometimes surprised me, the way Mateo claimed Elena without qualification, without the modifier of step or adoptive. She was ours. He'd raised her from birth, had been there for every midnight feeding and every doctor's appointment and every moment of wonder and frustration. Biology mattered less than presence, less than choice. Inside, Elena stirred from her rest. We heard her padding down the hallway, calling for us with the assumption that we'd always answer, because we always had. Mama? Papa? Can we go to the park? We went to the park, watched Elena climb equipment with fearless precision, make friends with other children through the mysterious social alchemy of childhood. Demand we watch her demonstrate skills she'd mastered weeks ago. We sat on a bench holding hands, two people who'd survived impossible things and somehow built something beautiful from the wreckage. Do you think about it? Mateo asked as Elena hung upside down from the monkey bars, her laughter carrying across the playground. The alternate timeline where I didn't happen to walk down Boylston Street that day. Sometimes, late at night, when the what-ifs get loud, I watched our daughter, this miracle of survival and choice. I think about how close I came to just being a statistic. Another woman who died in childbirth from complications that were really murder. Another name in a case file that never got solved. But you didn't. You survived. Because you found me. I looked at him. And I know we've talked about this. I know you hate when I give you credit for my survival. But Mateo, you did find me. You did choose to intervene. You did keep me alive when dying would have been easier. That matters. You can't take that away just because it makes me uncomfortable to acknowledge I needed help. He was quiet for a moment. Then, and you kept yourself alive. You made the choice to collapse somewhere public. You made the choice to accept help when I offered it. You made the choice to fight back instead of disappearing. I found you, yes, but you let yourself be found. That's not the same as being passive. The reframe settled something in me I hadn't known needed settling. The last piece of shame about needing rescue, about not being strong enough to save myself independently. Because he was right. I'd made choices too. Active ones. Choices that had required their own kind of courage. We saved each other. I said finally. You gave me resources and safety. I gave you purpose and a reason to stay soft instead of just hard. We saved each other. I like that better than one person being the hero. Me too. That evening, after Elena was asleep and the house had settled into its nighttime quiet, I sat at my desk working on a presentation for the clinic's board meeting. We were expanding, adding trauma-informed childcare so women with young children could access services, hiring a full-time immigration attorney to help survivors navigate visa complications, partnering with housing organizations to create transitional living spaces. The work mattered. Every woman I helped understand her options, every survivor I walked through the legal system, every person I convinced that their trauma didn't have to be their whole story. It mattered. It couldn't undo what had happened to me, couldn't bring back the 18 months I'd lost to Dimitri's control, but it could ensure fewer women lost years to men who saw them as resources to exploit. Mateo appeared with tea, set it beside my laptop without interrupting. This too had become ritual, the quiet support, the understanding that I needed to work late sometimes, that my purpose couldn't just be wife and mother, even though those roles mattered immensely. Thank you, I said, saving my document. For tea? For all of it. For understanding that I need this work, that helping others helps me, that I can't just be healed, I have to be useful too. You don't have to earn your place here, Daria. You know that, right? He sat on the edge of my desk. You could stop working tomorrow, focus entirely on Elena and yourself, and you'd still be exactly as valuable, exactly as loved. I know. Intellectually, I know. But I struggled to articulate. I need to know that I'm more than what happened to me, that I have value beyond surviving. The clinic gives me that. Helping others gives me that. Then keep doing it. For as long as it feeds you instead of depleting you. Always with the healthy boundaries, I teased. Who are you and what did you do with the man who used to solve every problem with intimidation and resources? He went to therapy for 5 years and learned that control is just fear wearing a suit. Mateo smiled. Though I still use intimidation occasionally, just more selectively. We went to bed late, our bodies fitting together with the ease of 5 years of practice. Mateo's hand found my hip. Familiar territory. I turned to face him in the darkness. I love you, I said. I don't say it enough, but I do. I love the man you've become, the father you are to Elena, the partner who keeps showing up even when I'm difficult. You're not difficult. You're human. His thumb traced patterns on my skin. And I love you too. Every complicated piece of you. Sleep came easily, dreamless. The nightmares that had plagued my early years had faded to occasional echoes, manageable through the tools Dr. Chen had taught me. Most nights now, I slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that I was safe, my daughter was safe, my life was my own. In the morning, I woke to Elena's voice, singing something in Russian she'd learned from my mother, the words slightly mangled but the melody perfect. I lay there listening, Mateo still asleep beside me, and felt something I'd never expected to feel again. Contentment, not happiness, that was too simple, too fragile. Contentment. The deep knowledge that I was exactly where I needed to be. I thought about the woman who'd collapsed on Boylston Street 6 years ago. The woman who'd believed her story was ending, that she'd failed at everything that mattered, that the world had broken her beyond repair. If I could go back and tell her anything, I'd say this. You're stronger than you know. The pain you're feeling won't destroy you. It'll transform you. You'll lose things you thought you couldn't survive losing. You'll discover strength in places you didn't know to look. You'll learn that asking for help isn't weakness, and that love can exist without control. You'll meet a man who'll keep every promise, even the ones he never makes out loud. You'll have a daughter who teaches you that joy exists even after trauma. You'll build a life from wreckage, and that life will be more beautiful than anything you could have imagined in your before. It won't be easy. Some days, you'll still wake up convinced you're back in that locked apartment. Some days, you'll doubt every choice you've made. Some days, survival will feel like the best you can manage. But you'll survive anyway. You'll survive, and then you'll live. And living, really living, not just existing, will become your greatest act of defiance. I got out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Mateo. Found Elena in her room, surrounded by picture books and stuffed animals, living the childhood I'd fought to give her. She looked up when I entered, smiled with genuine delight at my presence, a gift I never took for granted. Morning, Mama. Morning, Moya Solnishka, my sunshine, my light. What are you reading? A story about a princess who saves herself. No prince, just her and her dragon friend. I like that story. Me too. She's brave, like you. The comparison caught in my throat. I'm not always brave. Papa says courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing the thing anyway. She stood, hugged me with the fierce intensity of someone who hadn't yet learned that affection could be weaponized. You were scared, but you kept going. That's brave. I held my daughter, this perfect creature who existed because I'd survived, and let myself believe her. Maybe I was brave. Maybe courage looked like collapsing on a public street instead of dying quietly. Like accepting help when every instinct screamed to refuse it. Like testifying despite fear. Like choosing to love again after learning love could be a trap. Maybe courage was just showing up, day after day, making choices that honored who I was becoming instead of who I'd been. Come on, I said, releasing her. Let's make pancakes. Loud ones, so Papa has to wake up. We went to the kitchen, made breakfast with more enthusiasm than skill, laughing when flour ended up everywhere except where it was supposed to be. Mateo appeared eventually, drawn by the noise and the smell of burning batter, took over before we could destroy the kitchen entirely. This was the life I'd chosen, the life I'd fought for, the life that had required survival and healing, and the daily decision to keep going when stopping would have been easier. It wasn't perfect. Some days were still hard. Some nights, I still woke from nightmares. Some moments, I still felt the ghost of Dimitri's hand on my throat, reminding me how quickly safety could evaporate. But this was mine, my family, my work, my choices. Mine in a way, nothing had been mine when doors locked from the outside and phones disappeared and my body became someone else's property. They say facing danger is how you get lost. I learned the opposite. It was only when I stopped looking away, from the truth of what had happened, from the work of healing, from the possibility that maybe, possibly, I deserved to be happy, that I finally found myself. And once found, I wasn't letting go. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from, and click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by